All right. Happy Martin Luther King Day, y'all. So Mike and I presumably have it off. Well, at least I have it off. And actually, funnily enough, I have Wednesday off because it's inauguration day. But I have no plans on going anywhere near the Capitol because that is just not a good idea, I think,
Yeah,
for a lot
I
of
can
reasons.
confirm, by the way, that I'm not playing hooky. I
Oh,
actually have the day off. I'm not just working and trying to be on the stream at the same time.
yep. Yeah, that's fair. So let me hide these controls real quick. So, what's going on here is, oh, JW, thank you for the sub. What's going on here is that I played the Vintage Showcase last Saturday, and frankly, before Saturday, I was not happy with any of the decks that I had built or that people sent me. So, what I did was I looked at successful breach decks and maybe how to iterate upon them because I don't know, like just playing a tournament with a supposedly good deck, but you don't really enjoy, say Golo Shops with Leyline, that's going to end very poorly, I think, on average, even if it is like a very good deck. Like I tested Golo Shops with Leyline in 2 weeks, and I went 2-3 both times, and most of the times I actually lost to other Shops decks because I think once you put Leyline into your deck, you actually become worse unless if you draw exactly Helm. Um, so I don't know, that underlying stuff made me not want to do that. Uh, Montoya sent me an oath list, a control oath list, and I looked at it. I'm just like, this is not very appealing to me. So Saturday morning, I woke up and I'm just like, okay, how can I fix some problems with Breach? So I know a few people have done this, and I don't know if you've seen a lot of it. Is you can put Tinker into Breach. It just costs you a bunch of slots, right? Like I don't know how many lists you've looked at.
Yeah, I mean, it costs you a non-trivial amount of slots.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the
Mm-hmm.
Tinker slot, the Bolas's Citadel slot. Um, Based on your list, you're not going too crazy with the actual artifact count now,
Right.
which is nice. I think the only addition I see is Sensi's Divining Top, which is generally not a breach card, and Soul, I guess too.
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually think I tricked my Doomsday opponent because I played Soul Ring. Then they went for it. Then I brain freeze them. We'll talk about that more later. But that's like a very. This is not a classic card for Breach to play because it's like not honestly not very good most of the time. It's obviously good with Tinker. It's good with Top. It's sometimes good at letting you tutor for Jailer quicker. That's why I played a main deck Jailer. Yeah, no Emerald. Emerald, I think, is just worse than Mana Crypt and Soul Ring in this deck. I mean, like,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it's definitely a quantity of mana over quality of mana, and
exactly.
things like Lotus Petal and Black Lotus, obviously, but like Lotus Petal specifically is more for the Breach combo itself and ends
Hmm.
up. I would say that's the weakest of the restricted artifacts that you have there, and it's so vital to the Breach combo that you'd much rather have it over Emerald.
So my actual concern with this list, and it didn't actually come up, is that well, actually, I think it came up once. Is I think 9 non-Citadel artifacts for Tinker is actually a little bit low. 10 is still low. I think the more comfortable range is probably 12, but I couldn't figure out how to do everything I wanted to do, plus play Arcanist and 4 Preordain. My suspicion is if you want to do the thing I'm describing is you could cut Arcanist and Preordain for like 2 more tops, but then that increases your exposure to something like Collector Oof and Null Rod. So it's not great overall. Think it's actually an issue, and you see this issue in other decks and other formats where people play like Birds of Paradise off of like 11 sources, and I'm just like that's really low too. It's a similar sort of problem. I think you're basically splashing Tinker off of these, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a Breach deck first and a Tinker Citadel deck second. And you're just kind of hoping with the high
Hmm.
magic preordains being able to rebuy your cantrips with Arcanist that you just happen upon what you need to be able to fire off Tinker.
Of course, this doesn't tell the entire story. You can always use one of your tutors to go get an artifact, so they sort of count. You can use your cantrips to find artifacts. So like the numbers are like a little bit effectively higher due to the Xerox theory, generally speaking, but it's definitely pushing the edges. And
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. A few other unusual choices is I think I basically looked at the meta and I expected the winners bracket to have a ton of the card Bizarre Baghdad, so I'm just like, all right, fuck it. I'll just play a main deck Jailer. And what that means is if I've seen my opponent mulligan a bunch, I can just go tutor for Jailer and try to cast it ASAP to try to win the game instead of trying to do anything else. Because I think doing this instead of tinkering for Citadel is so much safer. Jailer specifically, I think it lines up well because it basically forces them to force of will in game one to answer it, right?
yeah, they that's the only answer that they have main deck. They don't have any sort of
Mm-hmm.
uh, creature removal or like a dark blast or a contagion or something.
Dark Blast would be woefully uncastable in the versions of the deck I see nowadays, right?
Yeah, it's currently unplayable, but like I'm thinking, Bizarre Baghdad decks is like a whole. Like there are some that have some mana abilities, and yeah, like Dark Blast. I'm an old head, so like when I think
Mm-hmm.
of dredge decks, I think of like dredge decks from the past 15 years, and I'm like they've had Dark Blast at some point.
Yeah. I remember playing Dark Blast in like 2009 at like local proxy events and like a proxy event in California when I was visiting. Actually, I had Undiscovered Paradise for Bloodgast and Dark Blast in my 75. So I think that was back then when actually people were about to play Sun Titan when it came out because Sun Titan Dredge was a pretty popular thing. But that's a while ago. Yeah, there are no Dark Blasts. This is safe in game one. I think this is actually less safe post board, but if you max out on 4 with artifact mana, it's just a really, really strong thing to do.
Yeah,
Um,
just being able to go like the whole line of land, one of the zero drops, and a one in a black is just generally pretty easy to achieve. That's why you've seen vintage decks in the past that use a similar mana base, being using Dark Confidant as a draw engine. Same idea, except now you have a disruption engine instead.
yeah, yeah. So I was relatively satisfied with everything. I think there was enough Golos that I wanted to play a main deck Oracle's Recall, even though like basically these two cards are kind of bad like relatively often depending on what matchup you play, but I think the value of having them in game one when you have 3 tutors is just kind of nice, you know. I did actually forget to side out Jailer in my first match, game three, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm playing against like Grixis Whole Breacher and I have a Jailer in my hand. Fortunately, I won the game, but yeah, this there's definitely a real cost to putting these in your main deck, you know.
Spoilers.
Um,
But
so this is not intuitive, and I don't think it's real intuitive to most people. Underworld Breach being cast after Jailer overwrites the you're allowed to cast your cards essentially because of timestamps. I think is the answer.
I mean, it's, I believe that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked too far into it because the edge case that it would matter is if you cast an Underworld Breach and then somebody vialed in a Yixla Jailer
Yeah.
like, in response to like the first spell or whatever, which is not going to come up. So I'm just like, yeah, they come in a certain order and therefore Breach works, but it does work. That's the important part.
So I actually talked to someone about Modern because someone played Jailer in Modern once, and apparently if you do Violin Jailer, it does overwrite Breach.
Okay,
Um,
so it's
uh,
timestamps.
Yeah, because you know, there's a bunch of Aether Vial decks in Modern, and Breach has been played off and on. It definitely saw someone get got by that, and it was really sad. Also, if you breach into your Jailer, uh, be careful about that because then it overrides all of your things, and that could definitely happen. You know, like you're just like, oh, I can breach for my Jailer. It's really, really good. And but then you don't get to cast your other spells, which is kind of sad. Uh,
Yeah, it has to be your last spell, and you're just kind of like, I can't continue any sort of valuable train, but I can put this artifact or this graveyard hoser into play before my turn ends.
yeah. So I really had fun playing this deck, and I think it's like close to the margins on how it's built. Like it's I pushed it as far as it could go in a lot of ways to incorporate a lot of engines that I mean, I this is restricted. I couldn't not play it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's worth the white splash by itself, to be honest. Even though
Actually,
yeah,
this
you have the guys sitting there too, but
this card was phenomenal for me. Actually, MTGO bugged and I fused a wear turn and it let me target a stone coil and it shouldn't, I think. But I didn't actually click on it. I just saw that was a valid target. But
yeah, because it's multicolored when it's
yeah.
fused. It makes sense.
How different am I from Matt and Kane? I don't know. I looked at their lists and I think it's close. I took all of the elements I liked and played them. I noticed the weaker players played Bifrost instead of Shattering Spree, but I think Spree is way better.
You
Um,
also have Dreadhorde Archivist to buy it back, which is a huge leg up over just the card in general.
well, so there's that, and the other thing that comes up a lot, I think, is okay. Suppose you want to Bifrost for two versus two artifacts. That costs you two in a red, plus one if they have a sphere, which is four. Shattering Spree costs one red. I have a mountain to support that. Plus one, or it costs one red. Um, with the mountain, I think that's doable. Obviously, my dual land count is not that high. I wanted to play three basics because I also expected some people to play bug. The minute you have three basics, if they start trophying you, it's not that big of a deal. Also, Ghost Quarters from Golos, like basic lands are great. It's a lesson you relearn over and over in other formats, and I think it sort of applies once people start ghost courting and trophying in this format too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's still strip mine that you'll feel real bad about, but like there are heavy wasteland decks, the goalless ones, all the different breeds of Bizarre Baghdad run some number of wastelands, so like you end up valuing having just extra lands in general and basic lands specifically quite often.
Someone brings up in the chat Soul Ring Mana Crypt with lower counts. It's by force. I don't know. I sort of still disagree with that, and I just explained why. I mean, I that's why I'm sideboarding the Mountain too. I mean, obviously Arcanist is also a tiebreaker, but there's only one Arcanist. So I think I'm just going to disagree with your assessment there, Justin. I think if I'm playing red and I have a mountain, I think I'm just going to play Shattering Spree most of the time. Maybe I play a third Volcanic. Yeah, I also cut Emerald. I mean, Emerald is not that good. Like, it's fine. I would rather have Soul Ring and Mana Crypt, like I said, for Tinker, and it also opens up the line of like turn one C tutor or turn two C tutor for Jailer if you play Soul Ring. So yeah, there's all of that. Back to Wear Tear. I think it's just really good. Like versus Golos combo shops, this is like the best card you can have
Oh
because
yeah,
it kills their leyline and it kills their thing. Um, question from a chat: did Arcanist cannibalize my ability to get value from breaches? Okay, so great question. That's actually why I cut the Delve card draw spells. Um, I don't think you can have Arcanist, Breaches, and the Delve card draw spells and have Tinker Citadel. Something has to go. So there's no Dig through time or Cruise. A lot of people do play Dig and Cruise. Um,
I was
it's just a choice. I actually kind of don't love those cards in general. They're kind of clunky in my experience, and they're especially bad versus Leyline. Not that Arcanist is really good versus Leyline or Breach itself, but it's I don't know.
when it comes to
Well,
blue decks. Sorry if I can
no,
interject for a
go ahead, go ahead.
When it comes to blue decks, you often find that there's a like you have the digs and the cruises, and it oftentimes like there will be certain brands of blue decks, and Breach being a good example, one where cruise is not particularly good. Like cruise is much more of a Xerox one, which is
Right.
the just the heavy preordained, but also like that fade in deck where you can
Mm-hmm.
reliably probably fill your graveyard enough for two Dell spells during the course of the game.
Right.
That's much more of a cruise deck. Whereas like for this deck, it's just like, are we playing dig or not? Like cruise was never really a specific consideration, and I agree with you that you're fighting with your graveyard too much with the 4-1 in the red cards, and
Mm-hmm.
fighting for slots with the Tinker Citadel. That something had to go.
And I think if I wasn't playing Hercules and Jailer, those would be the slots where the Delve card draw spells might live. But I think it's just based on how I expected the winners bracket to look. I wanted to play the Silver Bullets, even though like I said, there's a cost to playing Silver Bullets. Sometimes you draw them and they're bad because they have no text. That's the cost. Like if you play Birthing Pod deck, you're familiar with that effect where you just like draw like a Kataki versus like a burn deck or something like that. You know, it's not a good feeling, but that's what I chose to do. And yeah. Also, one last thing before we get to the matches is there's a lot of ways you can build your interaction package. I chose 3 Power Blast, 1 Bolt, 1 Fluster. I don't really have any science behind that except I really, really hate drawing too many of these reactive cards in the wrong matchup. So I don't think you can play more than like 5. And the question is which ones you want to play. Bolt is kind of like generically fine as a catch-all versus like an Arcanist versus maybe you get a turn versus like a Revoker or something, you know? I don't know how to put it. And I think if you put in too many anti-blue cards, you run the risk of floating out on them when they're bad, is how I would put it, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge cost to like the blue battle that you can play with the
Mm-hmm.
metagame, where it's just like there's so many blue decks that you want to have very real answers to them. With Flusterstorm and Pyroblast being like single-minded anti-blue cards, versus like, but then you lose some play against the workshop decks and the bizarre decks, and where things like Lightning Bolt will come into play. Like if you're dealing with like collector oofs and the like, you really just want a diversity because you don't want to like you want a metagame, but like
Yeah.
you want to make sure you metagame for everyone.
Yeah, it's sort of that. And like technically you can kill someone with Lightning Bolt in this deck. I've This generally happens if you expect your opponent to have something like um okay, I guess it really depends, but Emrakul with Aeon's Torn technically sometimes works, although you can get around that with like weird freeze ancestral tricks. It's not. Oh, Creeping Chill is a big one. Yes, if you're at like 9 or less and you can't brain freeze your opponent out, you might just have to brain freeze yourself. Chain lightning bolts until they're dead. I remember
Yeah,
playing Legacy Breach, and that definitely did happen to me. I'm like, oh, if I mill you, I might die to Creeping Chill, so I'll just loop my deck until I can cast 7 lightning bolts, which is pretty trivial if you have your entire deck in your graveyard, you know?
yeah. And that's the big thing is like you
Yeah.
already fueled yourself with freeze, so it's why are we freezing our opponents? And chill would be a really good answer, and it's the best one in vintage.
I mean, also, this is like a real card, and this is like mostly not a card unless you're playing against on Doomsday. We'll get more to that when we actually play the matchup. I think people saying that Doomsday is always dead versus Freeze don't really. I mean, they have like duresses and shit. I mean, it's not like they're completely cold to the card. I think the Doomsday Breach matchup is more about both people trying to set up in position to fight in a certain spot, is my opinion.
Yeah, that's a pretty good evaluation.
All right. So, all that aside, let's get to the first match. Let me see if I can find it. All right. All right. So my round one opponent is Punisher. I did not recognize them, and I'm not gonna lie. For this tournament, I actually did search people's Goldfish history. They didn't really have anything that looked modern, like modern era. So I just, I don't know. They didn't mulligan, so I just assumed that they were probably a blue deck, and this hand's fine. You know, it's not exciting, but
No, it's like it's one artifact away from a tinker, so you have some sort of in hand thing. Like obviously,
mhm.
vampiric tutor can mean the world, but interaction and pro action and lands can't ask for much more.
So I think the primary question you want to ask with this hand is how fast do you want to go? Because you can push all the way in the gas pedal and go Vamp Tutor for Mana Crypt on your first or on their end step and just tinker with Fluster backup.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously you get to see their first turn first,
Yeah.
which is huge to making that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, we'll see.
Right.
As much as I like thinking out lines, yeah,
Yeah, you might as well get some info. So this
yeah.
is, certainly looks like a blue deck. They chose not to shuffle. They don't do anything crazy, so it's a very legacy start, right? So does this change your plays and why?
I do not believe it changes my plays. I think you do want some sort of thing open at this point,
Mm-hmm.
um, with like some sort of land go. I'm I think it's just Volcanic Island at this point,
Yeah.
um, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you
It,
definitely uh, you want to be able to interact like yeah, just jamming Soul Ring. You're like taking another turn off, and now that they pondered, and they chose not to shuffle, which is vital to this information. You want to have something open. Oh, you
yeah.
do.
So I do this, and I think this, in retrospect, this is a big error. Like, it's not even a small error. I think it's a big error. This is like just quite bad. I, and I think my reasoning at the time was then if I do this, I can tinker with Pyroblast backup, but I can just do that next turn any. Oh no, I can't. My colored mana is the situation.
Yeah, you're choked on colored mana to hold back Soul Ring. Like
Yeah.
this is definitely planning for a specific line of like exactly what you said, Tinker Flusterstorm backup. Um,
Hmm.
but it doesn't look like we got particularly punished for it, which is nice.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So part of my read there was they played Ponder. They didn't play any fast mana, so I just assumed they weren't going to do anything broken the next turn. But that's not necessarily a read you can make because people will sandbag fast mana until their turn that they have to play it. The exception to doing that is Mindbreak Trap, obviously. But Mindbreak Trap is not that common in Game 1, I think, anymore, right?
Nah, I really haven't seen it. Even out of Dredge, they're just kind of off it right now.
So, actually, this is interesting. I chose not to go for it here. I'm trying to remember why. I think maybe my reasoning was I could Vamp Tutor and get more protection.
Yeah, I mean, you also see two open mana, which is
Yep.
huge. You just like you see the ability for them to force the will, you respond, and they fluster.
Yep.
So you didn't see Feld particularly safe.
So
Um,
they Mystical here, and I'm like, all right, that I'm probably not countering that. They get Ancestral. I'm like, okay, this is fine. With the two blasts in hand, that feels kind of safe. All
yeah,
right, so they do nothing here, and I'm just like, am I supposed to go now? Am I supposed to wait? What's the plan?
I feel like you wait because they have the ancestral,
Mm-hmm.
and you can. It's much easier when you are rocking counter spells. It's much easier to fight them being the proactive one. So like you would be taxing their ancestral, which is probably going to happen during their upkeep anyway.
Yeah, I disregarded that and went for it, and I think this is also a really really bad play. Yeah, I did vamp for a Lotus. I think is what I actually did. Doesn't show me what I selected, but I believe it's Black Lotus because that's the only card that makes sense. Yeah. So now, the question is, do you shove?
I mean, you're not going to draw more protection.
Yeah.
So
So I think I do shove, and I tinker away my Soul Ring, obviously. So they blast, and unfortunately, the only way this works is you have to fluster that blast. So now you're cold to their fluster if they have it.
yeah, you really have
Yeah,
like
but once you're committed to this, you have to do this, and I'm very sad now because like I think if you just wait, maybe you can improve. Especially if they commit something first, you know.
yeah. I'm just wondering what the play around is with Conmema, Sip, and Fair Gift and Lotus. Um, yeah, you can take it.
Why not
Take it.
crack Lotus for red? Does that really change anything?
I don't think so. I mean, it's still three mana is three mana.
Right.
They Fire Blast and Flusterstorm, and you had some interaction as well, and it doesn't just straight up didn't line up. Like
Yeah. I don't
to
think I
me.
changed anything. So now I'm pretty dead in the water because I know what's going to happen is they're going to play Ancestral. I'm going to have to crack my Lotus to Pyroblast it because I don't think I'm allowed to let that go. Right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then they
Like,
do this. So I obviously. And then now, like, I'm really dead in the water, I think. My hand is, like, really bad. I don't have anything going on. This is actually one of the better draws I could have, I think.
yeah, you can start. You don't have anything real good to
Eh,
flashback yet. Like, I mean, yeah,
this
Vampire Tutor is nice, but
So the drawback of top deck tutors is that they're card disadvantage, but with Arcanist they aren't. Like they're just you just stack your deck for a turn, you know.
right. And you have four preordains in the deck still.
But it's not surprising. All right, so feeling dead. Soul
Also,
Ring. Sorry. Now I
uh,
think they're like PO or Core Breacher, I guess.
well, the thing I saw, which yeah, I just wanted to touch on, is their pitch card was Time Twister
Oh,
for whatchamacallit, Force of Will. So they're definitely doing something unfair that is probably not Breach. Like Breach is not a big fan of shuffling his graveyard back into his library. So we're basically putting them on some sort of um, either weird PO deck based on the color combination, or as we see, Hull Breacher.
fortunately, I have this lightning bolt. I let them untap because I kind of hope that they actually play a wheel and then I get to bolt because that can get me back into the game.
That's smart.
And I take 3 damage because maybe they do it still second main because they assume I don't have it then. But then when they pass, and with the top, I'm just like, okay, I probably have to do it now. I don't think 3 damage actually matters in the grand scheme of things, you know?
Not with their game plan, though.
All right, not a good draw. No reason to play it now except for a Wheel of Fortune. But now the jig is up, so now I'm going to get dunked on if they have anything. And spoiler, they have something.
They have at least 13 cards.
All
Oh,
right,
y'all.
so now I'm just like, there's no way I'm not dead, right?
Yeah, you're a goner.
So they had both targets main. I'm just like, that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, it's more of a. It's weird. That's a very Grixis Tinker approach
Yep,
to Grixis like whole breacher deck. I'm not particularly a fan, but I guess
I'm
you
not
need
either.
game.
I I think, well, obviously I don't know a lot, but I'm just like, is it really necessary to have 2 targets? Like, how often do you tinker for Citadel and not kill your opponent, and have to tinker again for this? But the flip side is, if you tinker for this versus Dredge in game one, it's relatively safe and wins you a fair amount. But you tinker for this for shops and they play Stoneglow and then you're sad. I don't know. It's just like kind of weird overall. I don't know how to put it. My instinct is if I were building this deck, I would not put this in my main deck, and I probably would not put it in my sideboard. So
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
main deck Sphinx of the Steel Wind for them is your Yix the Jailer, if you want to look at it that way.
Sure. Yeah, that's
But
reasonable. And yeah, I think probably concede about now. Actually, I'm probably just dead next turn. Yep, bad draw. All right, so that's game one of round one. I get destroyed because A, I did not play great, and B, I might have still lost even if I had played correctly, but that's more unclear. I don't think I played great, is what I will say. So I'm good at game two. So let me look at how I sideboarded. Yep, the Yixwood Joe are still in the deck, so I regret everything. I think I sided in Spree, but not Wear Tear, because I expected them to have more mana rocks than I thought. That might have been a mistake, actually. I actually sort of had the idea that they might have PO in their deck too, but I think that was just an error. I think I shouldn't have thought that, and Joer should have definitely come out. But
yeah,
I actually like shaving one freeze in a lot of post board games. This is kind of a weak card, and if you don't actually need to combo kill your opponent immediately, shaving this in a post board game is like pretty free, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree. So it looks like you had what, four cards come out?
Yeah, the jail was supposed to come out.
Yeah, technically five were supposed to.
Whoops. Let's go back to that first hand. I believe it was just all red cards, which is not like all 2 mana red cards, which is not where you want to be at.
Yeah.
Okay, this hand is bad. This is just like This I don't think this hand beats a draft deck on average. Not gonna
It
lie,
does
it's just yeah. So
have
mulligan.
the cherry on top being the sanctuary.
So I think you should keep this hand, and it's debatable what you should bottom. I'm curious what you would do.
What I would bottom, I think it might be a mana artifact in this case. If you bottom Mox Jet, you can have all like the three of your four main colors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'll eventually, because you obviously you need the second island for Gush,
Yep.
and you want Force Will around,
Mm-hmm.
and you want Darkness as your pro action. So yeah, it's definitely a mana source. It's definitely a Mox, and it's definitely Jet.
Yep. Yep. I think I came to the same conclusion. If you just look at the hand, it basically plays itself because, yeah, I mean, you want to get C with that. And the second red, I think, is actually sort of relevant. Or the first red is definitely relevant. So,
Yeah,
yep.
and
And,
this is probably C.
yep.
Yeah,
I only have
and you,
one white card in my deck, so I don't really have to get Tundra. And they force, I'm like, okay. They pitch Sprite Dragon. I'm kind of like, does Grixis Whole Breacher just main deck Sprite Dragon, or did they side it in?
I would guess they cited this is an interesting build of Grixis Hull Breacher. I can tell you that much.
Right.
Like, yeah, Sprite Dragon's an interesting one. I could understand if you still thought they were PO at this point, even with everything else they showed you.
Exactly. So, I don't know. It was weird. So,
I think the telling tale is if like once you see a DAC fade in, then you know they're not on PO anymore. I feel like that's the tipping point. But for now, they're just like this is a weird Grixis Whole Breacher PO brew or something
mhm.
else.
So here I aggressively gush because I feel like they're weak if they forced my Arcanist. I just wanted to push action. Plus, the mock sort of makes up the man disadvantage that I'm employing onto myself. How do you feel about that?
That's fairly reasonable. You're going to be sitting at what, like, yeah, sitting on 4 mana this turn, so you can make a pretty astounding play even if you draw
Yeah.
Demonic Tutor. So I think it's worth it.
Not in the gush book. So I don't subscribe to heuristics are always correct. You should always just evaluate individually. I feel like them forcing my Arcanist means I have the go ahead to try to do something great this turn, and I can still get back to the mana. Um, Obviously, it sucks if I just draw like 2 lands or whatever. It's like pretty bad because then I can't like Sanctuary or whatever. But I feel like I want to push my advantage, and I'm not really inclined to pitch my force, my gush to my force. I think that's like probably going to end up losing me the game if I do that.
Have you ever seen the length of the Gush book? This situation is probably in there due to just how
And
many situations are in there.
this is great. Like this is like basically ideal because I don't mind pitching that to force. Um, you know. So I think I just tutor for Ancestral and try to bury my opponent, obviously.
Yeah, I like it.
And that resolves, and like now everything's just great, you know?
I like crafted a line in my head where even if you draw demonic, this is good, and that's what happened.
Yep, exactly. And now I'm just in such good shape. I think I top both. Uh, Actually, maybe I should have bottomed that land. What the hell was I think? Oh, my plan was to just preordain again and just wait. No, I should have just bottomed that fetch. What the hell was going on there? And here, obviously, I don't care if they Pyroblast that. That's absolutely fine.
It was the second preordain that scared them.
So Dom asks, is getting Ancestral better than trying to set up Tinker with Force backup? I think it is. Mostly because people have max blast postboard and you can't do it that turn. Then I think you just want to shove exactly that turn, Dom. That's what was going through my head, anyways. This, it's like whatever. That's fine. I think Breach is lethal next turn or close to it.
Yeah, you're pretty stocked. So you have demonic for something.
Oh, I just brainstorm because it wasn't lethal, but this is an insane brainstorm as well, obviously.
You're pretty set up here. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have demonic plus 2 sets of fuel. It's probably not good enough. You might have been mana choked.
Yeah, I think I was short, and I think I just start swimming bombs and see if they're dead. Here I just okay, at heart, I think I'm actually a DPS player at heart in this format. I just want to shove until they run out of forces. Um, obviously that's not the safest, but that was my inclination was to just push my advantage there.
I mean, it's important to know how you play in order to play a deck and build a deck correctly.
I don't fight over this. I don't think that's worth it. I don't. I mean, the breach will get just get it back anyways. You know.
Yeah, you're better off fighting against the rest of their hand.
So I noticed that their red mana up was only Lotus, so I just jammed the Narset and just I'm gonna just keep trying to run them out because this is basically 2 for 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Basically force of will.
not a good draw, but that's okay. I still think I'm. Whoops. Shit. Shit. I accidentally hit fast forward. What happened that turn was. Okay. What happened that turn was I pondered, I breached, and just I cast Ancestral. They pyroed it. I cast Ancestral, and that one resolved. No. Wait, what happened?
A lot happened. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Okay. I think I did not mean to fast forward, but I think I knew about that second breach, so I didn't fight too hard that turn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you had pondered,
Right.
so that's a big piece of information.
I knew the second breach was there, so I didn't fight too hard when they just started burning all of their counters. Because I think you don't really need to. Uh-oh. Did it get stuck? Sometimes the replay gets stuck.
It was just sad I didn't want to go fast anymore.
I'll hit fast forward once. Okay, my opponent conceded to this breach. That's what happened. I see. Which is totally fair. So let's see. Suppose it didn't concede. What could I do? I could cast Tutor off these two, get Lotus, play the Lotus, and Tutor again for Brain Freeze, and that's lethal.
Yeah, because you have
2, 3, 4, 5,
5 mana
6.
total. That's quite a bit.
Yep.
Like 5 mana, get Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6 mana. Yeah, that's more than enough.
Joe still in my deck. I didn't learn my lesson. Mountain in my deck because I thought spraying them might be good. And I'm not sure. And there it is. Unfortunately, I think this hand is so good that you're not allowed to mulligan, even though you do have Jailer. You just have a good 6-card hand, is how I would put it. I just wish this were like literally. If it was like a mystical tutor or like a brain freeze, this hand would be so much better, you know. But I think I made a mistake and I accept my mistake, and this hand is still good, so you can't mulligan.
Yeah.
Now the question is, once you plan on keeping this hand, if you don't draw a mana source, do you shove on one? I guess we can answer that question to see if I draw a mana source or not.
Yeah, and see what the opponent has in terms of open mana. So this is the first point that we actually know that they're on Thieves and not PO for what it's worth.
Sure, because before the deck, they could still be a weird hybrid deck. Now that they've done this and they didn't fight over it, I just decide that shoving is right. But here's a debatable question: is do you tinker off the land or the pedal? And let me explain why I think that's actually a decision. Is you can use the land to shuffle after a Citadel, or if your Citadel does get into play, you can play a land off the Citadel if you do it that way. So which would you tinker off of?
I mean, if you're making such an aggressive play, I do think tinkering using the pedal is good for the reasons that you put. Like, it's just a land drop represents 2 more looks, let alone getting into the getting into the tinker stack. If you brick off, land drops are a huge resource when your Bolas is citadeling.
Yeah, my instinct was to do that. Then I would just like randomly thought about days. I'm like, okay, I'll play around days, and I think that was just not what I should do. And I think you're supposed to tinker away the crypt here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you don't tinker away crypt and you brick off citadel, you're just hurting yourself.
That's also the mountain I sided in, so it's just like Kind of funny. I think siding and mountain is good. If they're just stripping me here, it's like okay. All right, time walk's like kind of scary because if they have a second DAC, I lose. A second DAC, actually, I just lose on the spot. I think it's kind of funny, but they have nothing, and I'm like, okay, I probably beat them now. All right, do you cycle Pyroblast?
Yeah, for sure. Pyroblast, like you've already hit a land.
So okay, spoiler, I clicked too fast again. If you cycle the first blast, I think you're supposed to cycle the second blast as well, right? Isn't it
Yeah,
just
it's
like
the same evaluation. You're just trying to get through your stack. You already had a failed stack last turn, so you're just trying to generate some sort of value and maybe get something into your hand, like hitting a cantrip, especially as a four preordained build.
so?
Um,
Here, my thought was, am I supposed to play Jailer out? And I'm like, nah, I need that pedal for the breach, or
yeah,
like I don't know, like a 2-1 for 2 is never winning this game, right?
right.
Yeah.
Doomwake disagrees, but I think
I
you're
do
correct.
not I do not believe the 2-1 for 2 will ever win the game here.
That's something I would do.
Okay. All right. Well, now my opponent's probably dead. Okay, now we just have everything. And I held priority, I think, here, because you're supposed to.
Yeah, you're absolutely supposed to.
All right, my opponent's just like, yep. Yeah, their hand was probably just like 2 mana sources, honestly, and they just couldn't win.
Yeah, they probably kept the first turn activate and fix my hand line and didn't expect you
That's
to counter.
fine. Like I would keep that. I mean, you're gonna really mulligan land Mox deck versus a deck that has shown you like that's on the solar side. I don't think so. Like I think it was defensible to do what they did. Obviously they
Yeah,
lost. All right. Round two. I play against my buddy Matt Katz. I know he's playing Combo Oath. I'm just like, well, this kind of sucks because I don't think the matchup is great personally.
I would choose to play here.
Yes, I would also choose to play. All right, you're not allowed to keep. Well, actually, are you allowed to keep? I don't really think so, but
As tempting as it is, I don't think you're allowed to keep.
yeah, I don't think so.
It's people will be like, it's scroll for ancestral off of Lotus with double forceful back, and I'm like, yeah, but surprisingly, that's not good enough. You
Well,
lose.
here's what you're doing: is you discarded two of your best, or you've discarded three of your best cards from your deck to draw three random cards from your deck. I mean,
Exactly.
you do have double force backup, and that's sort of appealing if you know their combo oath. But I just decide you can do better. I think
Yeah, I
this is
agree.
not better. That ain't it, Chief.
If Bolt is breach, you
And
would.
this is fine for 5. I mean, at least you have a plan, right?
Yeah. Are you bottoming Tinker here?
I don't think so. I think Tinker is the best way you can win, right? Like you're low in resources. What you want to do in a low resource game is introduce a lot of volatility into the game and try to win that way.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm like, you get rid of. Okay.
Yeah. I actually think you should get rid of the force if you're in such a low resource game and just try to, sack them. This is like sort of okay.
Yeah, you have. I mean, you have the second land so that you can um, time walk next turn. Although you're still. I guess you're drawing into unknowns, and you need the pedal as it like the pedal doesn't represent Tinker. Like first off, so like yeah, you keep and you.
Yeah. I'm just like, what? I thought he was combo oath. This is not a combo oath start.
Yeah, when you're so low on resources from the get go and your opponent goes library, you're gonna have a bad time.
And now I'm just more inclined to show up because waiting is even worse for Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
I could vamp for Crypt here. I think I walk first, but that's the same. I think I should have just vamped for Crypt and tried it. Yeah, I think I should have just. Now I decide to play it slow. This doesn't make a lot of sense.
Maybe you just saw the line.
No, so I waited one more turn to try to get one Fluster or Power Blast. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do that.
You're definitely on the back foot in terms of interactions, so I think the aggressive line was correct.
But I could have just been aggressive that turn, but I decided to get one counter for their counter. Is that wrong?
I
Maybe that's
think,
more of a judgment call, you know?
yeah, I think that's wrong.
And now I'm just dead. So, them passing with this up means that you have counter or land on top. There's almost nothing else it could be,
Did
right?
they play land that turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, missed it. Okay. Yeah. It's one or the other. Obviously, play as though it's a land because
I
you
think I
have.
got Fluster. Yeah, just getting Fluster here makes so much sense because if they only have one interaction spell, you beat it.
Yeah.
But obviously, if they have two forces, you lose. But they had Fluster Storm on top. So, like, obviously, I have to Fluster their Fluster. And now, if they have. I'm no longer, like, really that safe because now they probably have a force and there's 6 cards in hand. Not gonna lie. Yep. Now I'm just dead in the water. Yeah, no, the Tinker was the punish. They have more oaths than Tinkers, so and now they just, you know, they do combo oath things, and I angry react because we're friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just spam an angry react versus someone an unknown person.
Jarvis is
Oh shit.
not a soft guy. So we mulled the first one.
Let's go back to that hand. Actually, I think it was just pretty bad, but I quick passed it too fast. Actually, let's discuss how I saw word real quick. Jail or
Correct.
out. Oh, so I cited out all my creatures on the theory that if you do that, then they have to find an orchard as well. I don't know if that's crazy or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm like looking at it. Yeah, so you have Jailer out, Arcanist out. So you freed up 4
Yep.
spots for stuff to bring in.
I cited in Blast, Fluster, Wear Tear.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just like it depended on how much like space you were actually needing to make. It's definitely a good line. Like you boarded out 3 creatures and a
Mm-hmm.
Herbold. Like you kept the spell
I,
density in
I
your.
actually cited out Lightning Bolt too because I think Brain Freeze is always lethal versus them. They could have Memories Journey, but typically the turn you go off, you can just Ancestral them too, so it's not a big deal, I think, right?
You're not worried about chill.
Not really from Oath deck.
I mean, they self mill. You never know. But
All right, so let's look at the first hand. What the hell? It just like it turboed past it. It looked really bad. Let's see. Let's see if I can capture it again. I don't know why I just. All right, click, click, click.
there it is.
This hand's like pretty awful, I think.
Yeah, 3 reaction, 4 land. It's pretty bad.
So the real issue I think is a lot of their bombs are not actually blue, and the wear tear is like really reactive. I just don't foresee this beating like most of their hands, right?
Right, especially since you know what they're on. Like it is essentially blank. Like you're gonna have to, especially with how slow the mana was. Even if you end up wear tearing their like a early oath, and you won't have pyro backup possibly.
So is this better? I think it's better, and that you just bottom the Citadel and keep, and like you have 2 interaction spells. You have Scroll for Ancestral if you draw a land. Think you're supposed to keep on 6, but you're not thrilled about it either.
Yeah, it's not the best, but yeah, being able to put back Citadel is huge here. And
Yeah, London Mole turning up huge because Citadel is like it's actually worse for Citadel to be in your hand than for you to mulligan and put it on the bottom of your deck, you know?
exactly, that's one of the things is like with all these Tinker decks and Oath of Druids decks, the
And Dredge.
and
Dredge. However, I don't think this doesn't look like a game. I misstep it. It feels pretty free to misstep there, right? But
yeah,
look, I can't do shit, so I'm dead. Hooray! I think I fluster this, but I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, you fluster to
I fluster
fluster.
to use my mana in case if there's like a weird scenario where they like boarded poorly, and I scroll for Ancestral and it works. But I'm mostly dead in the water, you know.
Yeah, like you didn't really have any play in this game.
No, I took game act. My game actions were should I mulligan these hands, and I don't know. Maybe my first hand's actually better versus this. I don't really think it is, but it could be. And I get to see their deck, and I'm just like, oh, right, there's the will.
I mean, the difference being that you would have been able to Pyroblast instead of fluster, or instead of mental misstepping the. I guess you had Wear Tear.
Yeah, so it could have been better, but and they just like let my ancestral insta resolve. I'm like, oh, maybe they're soft, or maybe they just think that that doesn't matter. I don't know what's
Maybe.
going on. It's sort of hard to evaluate these games by this point because it's like, well, I'm so unlikely to lose, but maybe something weird's going to happen. You know, there's the library again.
So that didn't come out, which makes sense.
I got Gush with Mystical Tutor because I think I'm on so low mana. I've already used my Ancestral that Gush is like the best card for me to get to try to make something happen.
Yeah, you need to draw as many cards as possible and try to not use up your mana at the same time so that Demonic is on its most powerful, but apparently not.
The Citadel's back to taunt me. Narset's not even that good there because they can just spend a turn attacking it, which is sad.
They only have 9 turns left, though. Look at their library size.
No, what's going to happen is, well, this happened. What can also happen is they can mill themselves into Memory's Journey and flashback targeting Yawgmoth's Will if they really want to. It's a little bit unsafe to do that, especially if you think you can just win with Gristleband beatdowns. But we'll
That's
see.
reasonable.
But they drew 7 end step, then did it, and I'm like, okay, that means they think they're safe from everything. So yeah, you just oath and stack your deck with one card, and the one card is a pretty broken one.
The best part is it wasn't in their hand or milled yet.
And then I concede. I'm like, okay, that's like 9,000 points of tendrils or whatever, you know? A very,
Yeah.
very big number. So that's round 2. All right, let's go to round 3.
Yeah, the only play that you had there was the Wear Tear hand being able to get rid of the oath, maybe, but
so Namor Squats I didn't bother looking up. I was 99% sure. They played Doomsday in basically every event this past year, so I just assumed Doomsday, you know.
yeah, that's a reasonable assumption.
And they won the die roll.
You don't have to look them up.
Do you keep versus Doomsday? The Fluster is like pretty high value, right?
Yeah, the fluster's up there, and you have pro action, so I think it's reasonable. Your opponent's so polite and you didn't respond.
No.
Oh, there you
I think I had it closed and I had to pop it out because I usually just close it. Unless if it's like literally someone I know.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Good card, right?
It's a good one. I mean, I saw Justin in the chat, so insert the Doomsday always has it memes.
I just play out my mocks. Should I play it? No, I didn't play out my ring to bluff, but maybe I shouldn't even bother bluffing. Maybe I should just deploy it. I don't know.
I mean, you could also be relatively concerned with first turn Ancestral that they're just going to rip Doomsday you. So I think, yeah, thankfully they didn't because they're scared, which is totally reasonable.
I always think about how warping Gitaxian Probe would be in these mirrors, and then I remember the card is restricted.
I mean, it's still warping. They just have to draw one of it.
And I'm just like, all right, Time Walk's okay because I think it's just explore. Like I would rather fluster Doomsday. I would rather fluster so many things. Here I'm just like, huh?
The Value Oracle.
So they cast it. I'm like, all right, is there a consultation going in the stack because it's a one-hit KO? And then they just they resolve the trigger. I'm like, okay, it's just a few. It's a Lumen Grid Warden. I don't care. That's fine. You can have that one.
It's an Omen speaker too.
Yep, it's true. I think I vamp just to test them out. I think I just get Brain Freeze here. So, alright, let me explain this play out. So the reason I got Brain Freeze is since they've used one Oracle, I think it's harder for them to set up Oracle Consultation. So the more likely way they're going to try to beat me is to set up Doomsday line down the road, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they would have gone if they like seeing as they didn't go for it there.
Mm-hmm.
They would need a second Oracle in hand already and to draw the consultation. So yeah, I really agree that it's not a particularly strong line.
So I preordained here because now I finally have enough. The Jailer's back, and I'm like, all right, see you, Jailer. I actually bought them both because I think I don't want to tap out for Narset. That just gives them so much information. And I think I played the Soul Ring out to convince them. Oh no, I don't do it this turn. But I think eventually I played the Soul Ring out to convince them that I'm not Breach.
Dom's got a good point. They're just locking down the Jailer beats with the Thassa's Oracle.
Right. But they get their beatdowns on. So I force the Necro. I don't think you're allowed to let it resolve.
If it has 3 Bs in its cost, you're not letting it resolve in this
Well,
matchup.
I can let Doomsday resolve.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, obviously you have a very narrow answer for it that you're tutored for, but
so now I play the Soul Ring out. I feel like they're so hard going to go for Doomsday now because this screams PO and not Breach, right?
Right. Who was that? Doomwake? Yeah, if my opponent casts Bridge from below, I would counter it, like snap counter it, because there's shenanigans if they're casting that card.
Hello. We get to KO them. It's super nice. And obviously, like, this is misdirection at its finest. I'm just like, all right, Brain Freeze you now because Preordain kills you. A little bit of smack talk going on there. Well, I guess Indeed is not really smack talk, but
I don't think you're capable of being mean, Jarvis.
that's not true. But all right, so we got that one. Yo, what's up? Lots of lava lamps. Welcome. We're going over the vintage matches from this past Saturday.
Welcome, Lava.
So, do you keep this hand versus Doomsday on the draw?
On the draw, let's see. It's slow. It's definitely slow. You're gonna get cheesed out if you are expecting to get cheesed out. But I think they have to respect. I think it's defensible. I can understand if you mulliganed it, but I think it's defensible to keep.
I kept for all of the reasons you listed, and we'll see what happens. I mean, sort of spoiler, this does not work out, and they did go to 6, so I just like kept because I think this is pretty good in an attrition game.
Yeah. Like you have the Ponder and the Gush to do your digging, and you will get to Narset mana. Like you have the Narset mana already.
Oh, it's the turn 1 Ancestral! What is it with this person? Alright, so drawing Brainstorm. I don't think you're allowed to cast Brainstorm here. I think you have to just play like Volk Go. You know?
You have to pretend you don't. You have to pretend you're on the back foot, especially after Ancestral.
Right.
I mean, technically you are on a back foot, just a different kind.
Right. So obviously I'm never countering Time Walk because I think that's just so low value.
It's nice that they have Island there and not Underground Sea because they... Oh, okay.
Alright, so now I'm like, alright, guess I have to Brainstorm because, like, my hand actually... I'm just dead to, like, basically everything.
Yeah, like they have so much mana up.
Sad. It would have worked out if I had just Brainstormed on my main phase, but so low odds for it to work out like this, you know?
Yeah, that is a very specific... Like, You
That
need it. Like,
yeah.
Lotus Brain Freeze, obviously, but like even if it's not Lotus, like it would have had to been 3 hits. Like that is astronomically low.
So my actual plan was, if they just passed, was to just mystical for brain freeze and say go with 2 mana up, which is like kind of like defensive, but I think it's fine to do that in this matchup.
I think it's pretty good because you have Gush to add to the storm count too.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Obviously, this is like the maximum punish, but this is such low odds because this is one of, like, obviously Mox or not even a Mox does it because my land's tapped, right?
Yeah, you would have missed
Yeah.
that. Would have had to have been a second Mox. Like it was really astronomically low.
But
Like
I obviously it happens. I'm like, I'm just sad here because now I know I'm dead, and my brainstorm would have bailed me out, but that generally doesn't work like that. So, and I just put 2 cards back, assuming I'm going to die, and carry on. Sometimes that happens.
carry on my wayward son.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I go for this because I think maybe there's a chance I cut them off for 1 turn, in which case I can get them, you know?
Mhm.
But obviously now that the preordain resolves, it means I die, right? Assuming they have another card draw spell in hand. Oh no, they just preordain into Gush, right? And that it works easily.
Yeah, they gush into like Lotus, Thassa's Oracle, and they're golden.
Yep. All right. Spoiler alert, the next game is kind of long, so now would be a good time for a 2 minute break and for me to thank everyone who's here. So I'm gonna take 2 minutes. But thanks for everyone being here. Happy Monday, happy MLK Day. And we're going over the Vintage Showcase matches. I finished 6-2 in this tournament for 15th. Yesterday I finished second in the Legacy Showcase. So we're only going over Vintage today. But be right back in 2 minutes. Thanks everyone.
See y'all soon. I'm gonna grab some coffee myself.
Yeah. All right. I am back. It's just sometimes it's good to take a quick break, especially when you know long game is coming up because you've already played it.
Yeah.
All right. So when I'm on the play this game,
That's a good start.
can I open recall turn 1, please? Wait for my response.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize you're gonna open up that can of worms in the chat.
Look, it's because Nammer is a zoomer that I feel like it's actually funny to do that, and also obviously it's like kind of a joke, right?
Yeah, it's the biggest meme. I've been called out about it on commentary, so like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of hesitant. Like it kind of every time it comes up, I just kind of squirm a little bit.
But I mean, Namor did have turn 1 ancestral both games 1 and 2, so it's kind of a meme by this point, you know.
I don't know why they're so why they want to open it because it's only got a 50% match win or a game win percentage at this point, so it's not that
So
important.
how many duress does Doomsday play? It's like 2 generally, I think. 1 main, 1 sideboard.
Or
Oh, it's 4.
it's not a full four. It's definitely not a full four.
Okay.
There might be some sort of. The rest is actually fairly. Let me look up a specific player.
I'm looking at Namor's list because Namor's more likely to play Namor's list, right? So you might as well do that.
The
So
Namor list. I was just a lot of people. Yeah, so there's like that singleton. I was more curious about what stronger. Yeah, so Namor's playing one. Discover N. Spoiler won the showcase.
yep.
Plays zero. Like it's a very like it's definitely not a popular card, and even if you run it, it's not a very like you don't run many of them.
hmm And also, Discover N is probably the strongest Doomsday player, maybe in the world. I don't know. Like it's hard to judge that, right? Um, so the option here is do you brainstorm or not, right?
Um, I mean, let's see. You what are you gonna lose here? You're gonna lose probably Gush. And Gush Mentor is a pretty strong line.
Yeah.
I think it's worth brainstorming.
So you would have brainstormed off Volk most likely.
Yeah, absolutely off Volk.
Yep.
Yeah, just to hide the Gush because of the Mentor line. Like I'm just planning turns ahead.
So spoiler ended up not doing that, and I think that might have been a mistake. But they took brainstorm. And I'm just like, what? That's kind of
I mean,
weird.
there you go. Like the brainstorm got used. I'm happy
But
with that.
here's why. Oh.
Can't Pirate Blast that one.
Yeah, that's why they only necroed for 3. Necro's a kind of weird card to play with. Figure out what number you're supposed to necro for is actually not that easy, right?
It's definitely more than your hand size most of the time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like how much more.
Bad
Uh,
draw.
yeah, a little
Sort
bit.
of. It's not that bad, but it's not great. So we'll just roll the tape. I play preordained because I think I have to start taking actions. You're not really allowed to wait versus Necropotence, I think. Second duress is brutal. I'm just like, that's both of their duresses accounted for, though. So, all right. I'll talk about this for a second. Now I know any card in my hand is pretty much safe. They can no longer discard spell me, given that I know their deck list. I know their previous deck list. Obviously, they could have changed, but now if you draw a Flusterstorm or something, you know it's relatively likely to be safe in your hand.
Yeah, that's a good place to be. I mean,
So they
obviously,
cycle.
it's not.
They cycle Street Wraith instead of discarding it to Necro. Doesn't it just make no sense?
They wasted a card. That's still during the turn, right?
Yeah. Well, also you can pay 2 life to get 2 cards. You can pay 2 life to get 1 card. I think maybe they just misclicked during their end step. Is what was going on, right?
Yeah, they could have. Like they clicked it instead of clicking it to discard because
Yeah.
you probably don't want it like for a pile most of the time
Right.
when you're on necro lines.
Right. Oh, and then they discard a second Street Wraith. So I think it was just a misclick. Actually, that makes more sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I gush here. Don't find anything good. They force it. I'm like, okay, whatever. That's fine. Maybe I should have just played my land first, but I didn't know what I wanted to cast that turn.
I mean, what would you have cast that turn otherwise? The Mentor? Or, I mean,
Well, I could have Pyro Blasted their Fawn, right?
sorry, yeah, you could have Pyro Blasted their Fawn. But what would a situation have been that Underground Sea would have been relevant there?
Like if I draw a Tutor, right?
What your Ancestraling, right?
Oh no, I see. So
yeah, you used up all your mana to Merchant Scroll.
Sure.
So you basically making a land play. I doubt you would have Ancestraled into mana, but even if you did, off of Volk would have been fine. So I think that might have been a slight misstep.
Yeah, I agree. So I think I should have just played my land first and just, if they did that, then just Power Blasted. So this Fluster is actually a really good draw. I decide my plan here is to just sit with that open if possible, because I think it's more likely to win that way than any other way, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree.
This is like the world's saddest Tinker, I guess, but obviously not countering that because, like, okay, you can know about it, you're going to have to do something about it. And they have no land. I actually forgot. They had no land on turn 3 or 4. And they're not necroing. I'm just like, what the hell is going on? This is, like, really weird.
Their hand is stacked.
and they cruise. I'm like, okay, you can cruise. Cruising, like, I do not think I should use Fluster on a card draw spell. I think it is reserved for Doomsday. I cited in
That's,
port. I think it's good in this matchup, actually.
oh, it's incredible. It mills them.
Now they have to force this, and I'm just like, okay, you can have that. Because I think if I fluster there and then they just go Doomsday card draw spells, I lose. So I think it's just better to sit and like
Yeah,
they're still not playing lands. It's so unbelievable.
I guess they have so many force wills. I'm like looking because they're not filling up very aggressively, but they're like they also are at low life. So I feel like they just drew infinite force of wills off of the necro and
Hmm.
just are saving life by not going hard. Like granted they're at 3 now, so it doesn't matter.
I think what happened this game was a lot of things. First off, I don't care about any of their card draw spells. Second off, I'm gonna see if I can make shit happen now because
Yeah, a value
um
breach.
well with the pyro, I decide not to go ham on a second ancestral because I think I can wait. And now this is just such a good situation for me anyways with the sanctuary.
Yeah, you're drawing cards with your broken enchantment while they're drawing cards with theirs, and you have backup for force of will, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean I could have dug one deeper or one ancestral deeper, but I think it's just not worth the risk. And now it's just like, well, now let's see if you have anything because now you're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I beat Necropotent staying in play the entire game. It turned out their hand could not beat the Flusterstorm, apparently.
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's not surprising. It's just it's incredible that like they had these 7 card hands that couldn't be one spell. Like it just shows the power. This is why Flusterstorm sees play despite having.
Ari says this game has some real won the match '05 energy. Yeah, that if you don't know that reference, that's Brian Davis versus Bob Maurer. You should go watch that match. It was literally with Necropotence versus Oath. That's like a classic YouTube match.
Oh yeah, that's I've seen that match. That is like 1990s
Yeah.
paper match. Like camera on his hand with like enlightened tutor.
I look at sometimes I go back and look at the deck list in there and I'm like, wow, that's wild that Magic looked like that. But yeah, Ari has the pulse of that match correct. It's definitely has that feel to it that I feels like I should have died, but I didn't. All right. So match 4 playing against Joanne Anton. They what is his avatar?
That's Monastery Mentor.
No, but 2019 Vintage Championship Prestige. So that means they're probably decent, but you know, I came here to game. No fear. Alright. Let's see what we got.
I think I see more people with a prestige avatar than without at this point that I don't really think about it when I'm playing them.
Is this a good hand? It is a good hand. I'm never mulliganing.
I mean, you have the best spell in the format, Gataxian Probe.
Yeah. So obviously I keep. They went to 6. I think London Mulligan did make like vintage a lot more interesting because like there's really not a real reason to keep week 7s, I think, anymore. That's just the case for all formats, I think, is the actual reality. You should
It
just.
helped coincided with the power level being amped up like a lot. That is a hand that doesn't do much of anything.
So this means PO, I think, right?
Oh yeah, it's PO. It's either like a normal PO or PO breach, but it's PO. Like Opal's a net giveaway.
Yep. So I think it's time to just. I think I lead on Lotus and crack it because I actually want to use the fetch for a top, but maybe I should have just ancestral off my fetch.
I like it. You're gonna use all of the mana. Like it's not.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be wasting mana. You still like the worst thing you
Right.
have is like scroll, which is fine. Like I think your line's justified.
There's the jailer again. God damn it.
Plus now you can fetch for, for
I'm not playing the goddamn jailer. The breach is actually really good. Wait, I think hold on. Was that lethal this turn? Actually, I think it's lethal this turn, right? So you bottom C, draw breach, play Delta. Yeah. Wait, I messed it up. What did I do?
You definitely had lethal.
Oh
Um,
shit! I can't believe I did that. Yes. No. What? Okay. Chat. I was supposed to bottom the C, just draw the breach, fetch for Volk, play breach, play Lotus, brain freeze myself. GG. Oh my god, that's really bad. Jesus, that's so bad.
Jarvis is being punished for his replay things by finding
I
horrendous
well,
misplays.
yeah, but that's why you go over to the tape and you're like, oh shit, I
Why did
completely
I
goofed
do
it.
that?
But I mean, as long as they don't. Actually, there's not a single card that they could peel out to beat me next turn, except even Fluster doesn't do it, right?
To beat you next turn?
Yeah.
Oh, like because you didn't combo.
Oh no, they can draw Tinker.
Yeah, they can draw Tinker. They have
Okay,
enough
so
mana.
if they drew Tinker, I would be punished. Yeah, yeah. Yep. This is loose, and I mean, I hope I don't get punished, but I could. Uh,
Well, you're definitely not gonna get punished if it's Underground City.
okay, so now I'm pretty sure I'm safe because, like, obviously I could have won last turn, but I should have just won this turn. I think I just wanted to play the top for God knows what reason, but it's so much better to just kill my opponent instead.
You have old articles. I think you need to reread Chad Ellis's Danger of Cool Things,
Oh
which is
no,
the
it wasn't even a cool thing I was thinking about. I just thought it was safer somehow,
yeah.
but it's not
Well,
really safer,
the
obviously.
the cool thing aspect of this is also pigeonhole. Like the Chad Ellis article talks about pigeonholing yourself on a specific card that you want to cast, and end up like putting on blinders for the correct play.
Sure, and obviously, don't do this at home. Playing the breach is so much better here. I don't know why it lags so much.
And it's Magic Online.
Yeah. But now they have one unknown. There's not actually a card that they could draw that stops this in stock PO, I think, right?
And
Obviously, if they drew like Spell Pierce, I would be unhappy, but I that's not a real card in my book, so
yeah, they're not gonna have that one.
yeah. Man, remember when they let me play with these cards in Legacy? It was some real nonsense. All right, this is the least interesting part of the deck. All right, so let's go to match or yeah, game 2. So how did I sideboard?
I mean, important to note, your misplay allowed you to kill them that turn instead of them untapping and drawing a card.
All right, so I cut Jailer, I cut this, I cut that, cut that. I left in Vamp because I think vamping for Breach happens a lot and is good, whereas Mysticaling for Ancestral to get blasted is not so good.
Oh yeah, 2/3 of your combo can't
But
be found in Mystical Tutor.
I sided in Sprees to try to constrain them resources, but I think if I do that, I should side in the Mountain too. So that's like a little bit of a misstep.
Yeah, you probably could have shaved like an island for that or something.
Yep. Hercules is not that good versus PO in my experience. Like obviously it works, but it doesn't really work. It's like it's a 2-mana dispel for paradoxical outcome, which is not that good.
Yeah, like you'll get somebody with it game one from time to time, but it's the like one of the weakest lines in terms of like if they're doing that kind of stuff, it's probably bad.
So I'm like, okay, guess I keep. This is pretty good. Unless if something weird happens.
I mean, it's got the best card in the format again.
Unfortunately, they start vintaging me, which is not great.
Oh man, if only you had Hercules here.
Wouldn't do shit. I'm about to be very sad though. Fuck!
Oh
Dead.
no.
Dead. Dead.
The-
I just probed them to see, and I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. We can
And
save
so
energy. Oh, my hand was so good, except their hand was better because, well, actually, it wasn't that good if they didn't have that, but they drew 3 cards, so you know, good beats,
yeah,
right?
sometimes concentrate is a good card, especially when it's free or mostly free.
Yeah, no, that was not concentrate. That was draw 3, untap 4 lands.
Yeah.
It's frantic search on crack. All right. So that game was not really a game, but sometimes it happens.
I mean, we're going over all of them, even the bad ones.
I think you keep, right? Like it's not the most insane, but
Yeah,
these two cards are so insane in the matchup that
you get your first turn preordain off of Volcanic, and then you
no, I
have.
don't think you even preordain one, right? Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess because you have two counter spells that you can preordain onto. That makes sense.
Exactly. I'll just let the game develop and see what I actually need with this preordain, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things that like legacy brain versus vintage brain is that you're not just firing off your 1 mana sorcery on turn one because they could just do something that totally blanks whatever you found anyway.
I think sometimes in Legacy you don't even do that here, but it depends. I'm snap flustering that. That's like if you let that go, I could just die to like a Karn or something next turn. It's really bad. Unfortunately, they had a backup fluster, but I think this is okay. I mean, well, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah,
And
like you made the play. They just happened to have a counterplay. It's yeah, like demonic tutor. Like oh, there used to be a heuristic that you counter the tutor, your target, not the tutor. But the counter spells are so limited in their scope that that's just not a real thing.
right.
Let alone the recursion in this format is incredible with like a bunch of the different like Yogg's Will being the most
Mm-hmm.
suppressive one, but like even little things like Mystic Sanctuary, like sometimes demonicking for ancestral, even when you have a counter for it, is still detrimental because they sanctuary it back.
Right. Sometimes the replay just like kind of breaks. I don't even understand what's happening. Like I hit play and it's not playing. Right.
And then you hit pause and it plays.
It just like gets stuck. I don't really understand what drives it.
Pretty sure that the ancestral was the demonic payoff there. So
Oh yeah, if it's that turn because you have 1 minute left over and you know your tutor was good, you might as well just slam, right?
yeah, so we can basically say that they have five unknowns, like five.
And Karn was bad for me. And then I just like I blasted Preordain and they missed up and I blasted again because I'm like, well, these are not getting better. Fortunately, all they do is plus with Karn, so all
Yeah,
fortunately, quote unquote.
yeah.
Oh shit. I hate how it
Now,
does that. So I preordained, found Ancestral, drew three with Ancestral Pondered. This is like sort of a fine situation despite what has happened to me.
yeah, like you have the counter spell for the Mike's and Vladis, which is pretty nice, and they only have two cards in hand,
I
so
don't think they even played, like, they didn't wish for it ever verse me, so I just assumed it wasn't in their sideboard.
also possible they might have like Karn boards are really interesting when you only have one Karn. It's like what how deep do you go?
So I force this, I think. Obviously, I have to do it. I pitch Brain Freeze because I think keeping both of my cast cards is more important. What that means is I cannot combo kill them anymore because I don't have any Brain Freezes left, but I think that's fine. I think it's just more important to play for a longer game.
Yeah, you're gonna get outclassed by this Karn pretty quickly, so it's better to have spells that do something.
They get Tormod's Crypt anyways, which would have shut off the combo. What that really indicates to me is that I really do not think that they have Lattice or they're going to get Lattice next turn, but like what can I do? You know?
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Oh, combo killing through Karn is also impossible. That's the other thing I forgot. You just
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, you're right, Mario. Like there's a lot of things that are going against the brain freeze being useful there. I was doing level one without even like thinking about level two. Like level one was good enough for me.
So I draw Spree, and I think I just go after three of their artifacts, or two of their artifacts. Shit. Alright, so I spreed. I drew Gush for a turn, actually. I spreed two of their artifacts to try to cut them off, so they couldn't Lattice me if they had it. I think that's why I did it. It's just playing around Lattice in case if they did have it.
Yeah, that takes them off of 3 mana too with the dead opal. So
Exactly. So I think that was just like really good.
I'm a big fan of Like as a Force of Vigor player myself, there are
Yeah.
a lot of times it just feels so good when they have three artifacts, one's a no point, you just blow up two of them. Like it is
They
chef's
just
kiss.
Karn plus say go. That's a real sign of weakness.
We haven't done anything. We're all out of ideas. Yeah.
Oh shit. So I tinker for Citadel. I fast forwarded through a bunch of stuff, but okay, what happened was I preordained, bottom both, preordained top both, gush, play mana crypt, play tinker, play time walk off my thing. All right, and now they're I. This is like this is really funny that this does not give a shit about that.
I mean, you can't dome them for 10 right now.
I think that's going to be okay. All right, I think I need to restart MTGO. It's like being weird and like it's like kind of crashing. But I go spree tutor. I assume that's enough to win somehow. I'm not sure how.
As
Oh,
five.
spree tutor, breach time walk is good enough.
Yeah, that
All
makes
right,
sense.
so that's round four. So Karn has been in play almost the entire game, and they didn't get to kill me with it. So that's really funny.
Yeah, what did it do? It found crypt and end of list. Like that was it.
Yeah. All right. So restarting MTGO real quick. Be right back for round five.
Yeah, it was definitely much more impressive the second game where it shut off your actual mana. But that game it
Oh, you
was
mean that game where I kept a hand that was all in on turn one Tinker, but you don't mulligan those hands because I think it's just wrong?
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, you
The
were
Tor
totally on team too to keep despite the outcome.
the Tormod's Crypt was a good fetch. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really do anything. Yeah, thanks. Don't daze me, bro. Also, I did see your earlier message. I have become chiller over the years. I'm no longer like 24 and wanting to win at all costs.
Yeah, we're getting old, man.
Yeah, old is old. All right, let's find it. I mean, I still want to win, but you know. All right, Karate Dom, I believe, is playing Ravager Shops, but I didn't
Interesting.
know that because I think they switch a lot.
Yeah, Karate
Uh,
Dom has been on a multitude of things. I've seen Karate Dom on Doomsday, on Four
yeah,
Colored Death
exactly.
Ray, all sorts of stuff. Uh-oh, finish your league.
God damn it! Play happened too fast again. I hate it. Hold on. Let's go
Yeah,
back to that.
just assume that it's going to lag when you click that button.
It's specifically this button I think lags it, right?
Yeah, see, because you
Oh,
didn't click, it just took a little bit to load.
so I think this hand's actually a trap. I don't think it's very good.
I mean, Mystic Sanctuary is horrendous. It really is. Like, Mystic Sanctuary is a tinker target when you're evaluating most
Yeah.
hands. It's just you're tinkering with scrolling turn instead of tinker. Yeah, this hand is a trap for sure. Like, tap Sanctuary pass is not where you want to be in life.
Yeah, so I decided to mulligan. I just think you can do better. Again, like if the hand's marginal, I just tend to mulligan nowadays. Like this is fine, but really you're relying on preordain to find a lot here, I think. I think you can just do slightly better.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is better. This is much better. So I don't know for sure that he's on Ravager, but I also think Pyroblast is just the worst card in my hand, probably.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think you are because you don't have any reaction. You're also using like your first turn to set up top, most likely.
Right. So I think I keep this one. I think once you're on six, you have to like decide if this is good enough. I think this is good enough on average, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, at bottom time walk. Actually, that's also defensible. I think.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Yeah.
I was thinking Time Walk would be an explore to get Narset out without having to use Lotus Petal, but I can. It's defensible. Yeah, it was one of the two for sure. If it was not Time Walk, it would have been Pyroblast. But
Yep. It's either time walk or pyroblast. If I knew they were Ravager, obviously I would bottom the pyroblast, but I didn't actually know yet. So I keep. I play top and I play pedal. This lets you leave up Pyroblast if you actually need it. Now I'm just like, all right, I guess this Pyroblast is dead now because this is a clear indication that they're shops.
Yeah, a little bit.
I guess they could be Eldrazi technically, and that is a phenomenal draw. I'm just like, okay, thank you, deck. I
That's
couldn't even write it up better, right?
you couldn't have asked for the Hercules recall to show up in a better situation.
I'm like, Lodestone, okay, that's fine. I spin top. So it was Lotus Breach Preordain. And I draw the Lotus. And so my plan is well, so basically this turn, depending on what they do, I might have to just Herc some, right?
Yeah, and you're probably gonna. I would guess that you're gonna cash in your top for your breach if you do that.
Yeah, I think so too. I
Yeah,
don't remember. You could. It's defensible to do it to try to play it slower.
like none of these are relevant because Hercules costs 3 this whole time. Like there's
Yep.
only when it comes
Oh
to
yeah.
yeah,
So I do this because now if I find Brain Freeze, they're just dead, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and you have what you have Lotus Breach and you also have Narset, which is
And
huge.
hold on, Mystical is actually just lethal.
Yeah,
Yeah, Golem plus 3 ball is not the best interaction, but obviously you play both. Lodestone is just such a fast clock, and it does stack well with other spheres. So now here's the kill: you breach, crack Lotus, replay Lotus, play Mystical for Brain Freeze, play Narset into Brain Freeze, and they're dead.
yeah, perfect.
It's just kind of like any tutor, any Brain Freeze was basically lethal right there. I believe since I could cast Lotus twice, even a Black Tutor did it as well.
Yeah, exactly, Mario. Like
Yeah.
the two restricted spheres are very good by
Mhm.
themselves. They just occasionally don't do anything together.
And yeah, turn 4 kill through. They had Transfer and Lodestone, right?
Yep.
I mean, and I drew a Pyroblast and didn't bottom it. It's okay. I think it's fine to hedge and keep it there, though. Like I'm in the blind. All right.
I also don't think Time Walk would have been particularly useful there either.
Yep.
It's
All right.
worth. Yeah, what's your sideboarding look like?
Well, I shops is pretty straightforward. All of the blasts out, all the flutters out, jailer out, misstep out. I left in probe. I sided in 2 wear tears, mountain, spree.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah,
And this hand's
like
great.
Doom Wake with the Sag.
Yeah,
Um,
this hand's like obviously absurd.
yeah, I mostly when I ask about the sideboarding,
Yep.
like I know you know, and I know you know I know,
Mm-hmm.
but how many people are watching? 89.
Yep.
I would assume at least one person didn't know how you boarded.
Yep. That's fair. Obviously I'm gonna keep this. Pitching preordain makes sense. This is just filthy if it works. Like this is like a really strong curve.
Yeah,
So
it's incredible.
let's see what happens. All right, Leyline means this is not so good, but that's okay. At least it has more text than a Delve card draw spell because it's a 2 mana 1/3, which might block a Revoker or something. You don't know.
I mean, the old, not the old, but the new, the meme that Leyline of the Void is good against every deck in Vintage.
Stone Coil is fine with me. I think I
Yeah.
actually just played the Soul Ring out because then I can mentor into Ancestral, which makes sense to me, right?
Is this your wear tear game?
It is actually. Revoker's kind of a fierce punish, so I actually decided to force it. Here's why I force it. They didn't sphere me on turn 1, and they played Stone Coil instead, so I just thought they didn't have a sphere. I think they top decked the sphere.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So if you just read into the narrative of the game, I think it actually is correct to force in Revoker.
I like the play.
Nah, this is kind of sad, but it's fine. I had a
Yep,
mana floating, so I could still time walk after Ancestraling, which is fine.
Yep, totally worth it.
This is actually like looking kind of dire for me, despite how strong my opening hand was. But there's the wear tear.
Yeah, Wear Tear is going to do some work here, getting rid of the Sphere and the Ley Line. But yeah,
So
you're drawing a lot of graveyard interaction cards with the Arcanist and the Sanctuary and having the bottom the Breach.
yeah, so my read on this situation is they have 5 mana. They haven't done very much. Their hand has to be like a second ley line, probably like an expensive card that they can't cast.
I agree. Something that costs more than 4. Doomwake, yes. So Wear and Tear individually are monocolored cards, but Wear Tear Fuse takes on the properties of both, so will be multicolored and
Yeah.
Serpent won't
So
be killed.
the bug I discovered at MTGO is MTGO lets you target a Stonecoil Serpent even if you're fusing Wear Tear. I don't actually use that, but it like let me click on it. I actually go after these two. Spoiler alert, because like I think just going after that's like just asking to get reported, and that's like not how the game works, you know. So also I think it's actually better to kill the sphere personally.
It is. Yeah, I agree on Sand. It's rough and it gets everywhere.
So yeah, now my plan is to just chump block, and I think I vamp for Tinker and just try to preserve life points. You could have vamped for Lotus to cast that, but I think that loses more often than tinkering for Blightsteel. So here, I'm actually very, very exposed. If they draw Walking Ballista, I die.
Yeah,
But
straight up.
I'm just like, okay, I mean, I'm willing to accept that. And additionally, I'm not actually allowed to attack them next turn. Um, well, no, I am allowed to attack them, but if they have another creature, then I'm not allowed to attack them, and I also have to hope that they mess up, you know? So it's like a very precarious situation here.
Yeah, it's not the strongest blade steel in the world.
No, but this is my best chance of victory, I think, because now if I draw like Shattering Sphere or something, they lose. Or
Also,
maybe if they block poorly, I also win, you know? Because
yeah,
this has trample, so
important to note here that Sphinx's Steel Wind is absolute garbage, and this is one of the situations where it's garbage.
oh yeah, would have been bad. Should I put Wear Tear on top? I don't think so, because then they just double. Oh, maybe I should have actually.
I didn't even consider that. Yeah, the Mystic Sanctuary thing came and went so quickly. Granted, you still have an opportunity to do that. Like you can
Yeah,
Sanctuary.
but no, it's this turn if I do that. Okay, so that exposes me to Fleet Wheel, but if they had Fleet Wheel, they cast into Sphere and just kill me. Yeah, I think I was supposed to just put Wear Tear on top. That was
You were always exposed to Fleet Wheel.
yeah. I was actually supposed to put this on top.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a mistake. All right.
I totally missed what Sanctuary even grabbed. That
It got Gush, which is like the default, but I should have reconfigured my thought process and been realized, oh, topping over removal was actually better.
abandon your heuristics.
Yep. Uh, it bugged out. What actually happened here was I gushed into Shattering Spree and killed both of their permanents.
That's a way of getting through them. Yeah.
But
Why?
it didn't show it. Weird. The replay just bugged out instead. I don't know what happened. Okay, so that's round 5.
Magic the Gathering Online happened.
All right. Round 6. White Czar. I do not know what they play. I looked at their history and it was just like, it was all over the place again, so like, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not particular. I don't know them as well as Karate Dom because I haven't played against them.
This is bad versus everyone, I think. Like, it's good if they're Dredge and bad versus everyone else.
It's defensible against. It's not even defensible against Chops. Yeah, it's definitely Mulligan.
This is
Got
great versus everyone, so keep.
Yeah, I agree. Bottom Sanctuary, yeah.
2-1 beats. So the jailer is becoming a meme, which is fine. Like,
Doom Wake's meme, but that's how memes work.
yeah, obviously I'm jamming turn 1 mentor. I don't think he can do anything else with his hand.
That's exactly right. You're just gonna be going in monkey time. Oh look, it's Shops again.
Yeah, I'm like, this is actually fine for me.
Yeah.
I choose not to brainstorm there. I mean, I could have, but I don't think it's high value. All right. Also, the question is, do you brainstorm Ensep? I actually chose to, but maybe I shouldn't.
So brainstorms in Vintage are a lot more powerful than they are in Legacy. So an EOT brainstorm is basically correct in every single vintage deck. Where the line itself makes sense, only because you can hit multiple haymakers. In this case, you just hit a bunch of artifacts, which is unfortunate. But yeah, you don't even have enough fuel in the yard for like Underworld Breach anything, or really anything worth targeting.
Yeah, but I just decided making a bunch of monks is probably going to be good enough on average versus.
Making the artifacts is
Yeah.
pretty good, especially since it lets you attack with Monastery Mentor Prime this turn by itself.
We're sad now.
You're sad, but you still have a bunch of monks, so it's not the worst.
So, okay. Real question is, am I supposed to play Breach that turn to replay Mentor? And my conclusion was yes, it's correct.
It's really a toss up between Mentor and Brainstorm. Because you're going to be fetching, so it's going to be three new cards. I'm just wondering what
Well,
the
it won't be because I have to fetch first, then cast a Brainstorm because of how my mana situation is.
no, but that's what I'm saying is
Oh,
that the
sure.
brainstorm is going to be three fresh cards, which you only keep one, and because you're going to be off of blue mana, it's not going to be particularly good. So I
Exactly.
guess Mentor is correct. Yeah,
So that's what I did. This was just a regrowth for Mentor essentially, which is fine, you know. Also
yeah,
pumps all of these, gets in a bunch of damage, so I attack first to see what they do, obviously, but I don't think they can ever block there. It just is such low value.
yeah. You're not really throwing away any kind of value by doing that because you're just going to cast a creature post
So
combat.
I heard someone claim that this card is unplayable in vintage Ravager shops now.
Are you talking about specific streamers hating two mana one ones?
I don't know. It is a 2 mana 1/1, but like I don't know. So I did the quick combat math. If they block poorly, it's not lethal still because they can block three of them, and I would just trade a bunch of stuff and make a monk. But maybe I was supposed to do it here. Now the real issue with that is this is the perfect blocker for a monk, and I only have one card in hand.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest piece of this is like
Mm-hmm.
you can like kind of look at the board and math out like how big Ravager is, how big the
Mm-hmm.
transfer counters from a Ravager could be. But the main pivot point is that Chief of the Foundry. If you can't outclass the Chief of the Foundry with your smallest creature,
Yep.
then you're really just not going to be able to break parity here.
Yeah. So then the other question is, do I Pyroblast end step and hope to draw two spells in a row? Because basically what you need to do is you need to get 2/3/3s through or 3/2/2s through. There's no other way it works. So in almost all of those cases, I think you have to Power Blast and step on just a random permanent. And this is why you play Power Blast and not Red Elemental Blast, for those who are wondering, is for these specific scenarios. And it actually matters a lot here, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Like this is definitely a situation where you want to go wide.
So I was actually hoping they would play Metamorph there so hard, but they because they sacked their Thorn, I was so excited.
Yeah, just like what did you need to what did you give that
Metamorph would be the
for?
biggest reward.
Well, it wouldn't have been Metamorph because Metamorph wouldn't have been Thorned.
It's true.
It's a creature.
Yeah,
So
but I was still hoping that they played Metamorph because
yeah,
this is the maximum value from this card in the matchup then.
you're so mana flooded right now that it doesn't particularly matter. But Fleetwheel Cruiser is a specifically like them sacking Thorn for Cruiser is usually pretty good for you in this situation.
Usually, but so now next turn you have to do the math. It's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm at 13. I have mana crypt, so the game is becoming very, very precarious.
Yeah, I agree with Power Blasting end of turn in order to kind of go wide a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, at least you won.
All right. So this was weird. I was trying to figure out if I was supposed to play the Mox or not. So by playing the Mox, you get another token, but it also means. Oh, so the issue is I have to block this pretty much next turn, and the question is with how much.
Yeah, whether you want to throw
Yeah.
four, if you want to cash in four monks or just jump block.
So I think I have to play the Mox. I still don't have good attacks, so I just have to say go after playing the Mox. this game basically becomes about assessing combat rolls. All right. So
Yeah, good try.
recount. This is a 6 power creature. They're never sacking their chief because it just pumps it. It's basically almost identical, and this screws it. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So what this means is if I want to play around Mana Crypt, I have to block with 6 toughness worth of things, which is probably not worth it.
Hold on, the
It's
math. You just two on Ravager. So wait, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah,
11.
no,
You have
because it's only a two. It only has 2 counters. Chief of the Foundry.
yeah, but Chief is definitely crewing the cruiser. So
Yeah, no,
I'm
no.
just doing. So you have.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, okay. You're sorry. You're doing Ravager
Yeah.
counter math. I thought you were doing Ravager full Alpha Strike math with all three
Oh no,
creatures.
if they attack with everything, I definitely have to block shit. So they spend
Yeah,
a while thinking here about it. And they have a second sphere, and then that brings it up to 13, which means now I would have to chump too much. So now I think I'm supposed to take a coin flip, lose to Mana Crypt scenario if they attack appropriately. And I think they do that.
that's interesting. That might have been the. That's a really weird crew
So
there.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 minus 1. That puts me to 12, right?
So yeah, you have fives coming in currently, and then yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes, with
So,
Chief of sticking
so,
around.
but the problem is to play around Mana Crypt now, you have to block with basically everything, and I don't think that's ever winning. So now I'm just going to take my 50-50 shot to survive Mana Crypt and see if I draw a spell. Because then I win.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yep, this my strong hand, now it comes down to a coin flip essentially, and, is what it is. Wait, I just had to block with 2? I guess blocking with 2 means I can fetch. That's the reason to block with 2.
Yeah, because you still
Yeah.
like a spell, like it gives you.
I
Although
didn't
I
actually win the flip. This is a lie. I died. I don't know why it says that. It's
don't.
it's a bug. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
actually did block with both, and I actually did lose the flip. So I don't know. Computer's bugging out in the replay.
In the end, the math didn't particularly matter because like it was one non-creature spell no matter what in order to win the swing back. So it was like the actual mechanics of the math like weren't particularly like obviously you do want to be on your best behavior with how you assess combat math, but in that particular situation, monk plus mentor plus non-creature spell was lethal and
Yeah.
might as well just block with whatever.
So I actually sideboard exactly the same. Someone suggested. Someone has asked me if you should side this in versus Ravager Shops. I think it's mostly a trap unless you have a lot of wastelands in your deck and a way to constrain the artifact mana. I think it's like a pretty bad idea.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Like they are a mana deck. Like the reason the Tabernacle is good against the Bizarre Baghdad decks is because they're not mana decks. They're using Bizarre Baghdad and they're not casting Moxen versus like a Ravager Shops or a Golos stacks even where they have like any number of Moxen to keep their creatures out. Like it just doesn't matter.
This hand's pretty good. So obviously you keep this hand. The question is how do you play it? I think again. Uh,
Might be worth just taking a look first.
yeah, I think that's what I end up doing.
Like there's a
Yep.
lot of
And I draw Lotus, and that's just bananas. It's just like, okay, deck, if you really want to give this to me, I guess I'll take it. And their hand is pretty strong actually, but if you force the Trinisphere,
if you force
it's
they don't have permanents that
yeah.
tap for mana.
Actually, if you force the Black Lotus, they can't really do anything, right?
Yeah, well, if you force the Black Lotus, they can't really do anything.
Yeah.
They have Academy Black Lotus, but at the same time, like you can just wait and like they're not going to go Lotus Academy Pass. Like they're going to put some sort of pro action into effect, and any single spell in their hand, short of like Ballista on one, is going to be worth countering itself.
So the real question is, are you a coward? I'm not a coward. I just want to draw 3 cards and see what happens personally.
Oh yeah, definitely not a
So
coward.
you should crack this for 3 blue, crack this for Volcanic, and play Arcanus. Then, or you can. Okay, sorry. You should go Lotus, draw 3, see what you draw. Probably play Arcanus off Volk.
Yeah, the line right. Yeah, I mean, the line right now is definitely Lotus Ancestral.
And I draw Time Walk Tutor. I'm just like, okay, Dak, if you really want to let me have so much fun, I will take it.
Being able to Arcanist walk. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously
Arcanist
great.
is very obvious now.
Yeah, because I get to draw 3 more cards, and I can scroll as well. I don't know, like everything's
Yeah, this is
like
everything.
like they're like 1,000% dead, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I think
like
I
you have.
just I scroll for mystical actually, so I can just tinker. And I think here actually tinkering for Citadel is safer because of Phyrexian Metamorph or something weird. I don't know. It's kind of
So
weird.
interesting that you like kind of rewinding a little bit. You did in fact counter the Lotus.
Yeah, I think it's just safer. Like they have no really other mana there, so if you counter the Lotus, is like super safe. And I draw. Oh, I cycled Probe off the Arcanist to draw top, which is kind of nice too, because that means the Tinker for Citadel is basically lethal every
Yeah,
time.
minimum draw 15, and some of those are going to be Moxen.
So, well, no, also, like if you hit a breach and you find a black source, that means Citadel fixes your mana to just cast Brain Freeze and Lotus. Or, sorry, you have the Lotus there. So, Vamp Tutor backdoors into a breach that you can cast for free off your Citadel. I think that's what ends up happening, but we'll go through it now. I think this is like the least interesting part. I actually drew the spree instead of casting it because I think just paying 1 life to draw a spree is safer.
You're not going to be like fancy and spree your top and then response tap it.
No. I don't think that's worth it. But I find the breach and I vamp for the freeze and they die. So it's
Yeah.
that's that. Right.
Yeah, Tinker acting as draw engine slash mana fixing, et cetera, et cetera, et
I mean,
cetera.
that game was dictated by the fact that I probed into Black Lotus and basically just went ballistic on turn 1, right?
Yeah, that's that's exactly what happened. Black Lotus, most powerful card in Magic.
All right. So this on the draw versus shops, think it's obviously a key personally.
Yeah, you force a thing, you refill with Ancestral or Spree, depending on what it calls for.
Yep.
Probably pitching Narset.
Wasteland Mox. All right, so their hand's pretty good, but they did mulligan, so
It's Lodi. Yeah.
yeah, obviously you can't let that go. I pitched Brain Freeze because
Freeze. Okay.
I have both Brain Freeze in my deck for this matchup, and the second one is obviously not that necessary.
That's reasonable. Yeah, I agree with fetching Island here, even though you have Spree. That is not a good draw, but sometimes it happens.
Yep. So if this is their follow up, they feel weak to me, right?
Yeah, I mean they only have one card in
And
hand, and they
hold on.
didn't really maximize their mana.
Oh, I just drew that. So I think this is another game where I just tinker. Actually,
I mean, yeah, you probably
I play
what do you
Soul Ring top, Mystical for tinker probably.
Soul Ring off Islands top, take a look, and yeah, actually you probably do it off. I mean, yeah, you probably do it off a C. I didn't see the mystical for some reason.
And it was shit. I didn't see the last card, but I put the Volk on top just in case. I guess
It was the third best card in the pile, so it didn't matter.
it doesn't really matter because I think I'm just resetting my top because I mean like Citadel is super lethal here. Yo, what's up, Hane? Welcome to the stream. We're going over the vintage matches I played.
I wonder what their card in hand is.
It has to be bad. It's probably like Leyline of the Void, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Like it can't be like it could be like what they have 7 mana.
Yeah.
Like it couldn't be anything that's an artifact.
Force is like the worst draw, but I can just draw past it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you have Yawgmoth's Bargain right now.
I think my opponent conceded right here. Nope, they didn't concede yet. What the hell's going on? Did it bug out again? Oh my god. All
The
right.
game.
Actually, it looks like they did concede.
Yeah,
Right.
which is to be expected. I mean,
Mm.
top and Citadel is like extremely powerful. Being able to think. Oh, sorry, my phone fell. I've been using it to read chat. Um, yeah, the Tinker for Citadel is like with top out is just ridiculous. Like people like it's like oh it's like a build your own Yawgmoth bargain that you can tinker for, but like you also get to play the Moxen for free, so it's just so much better than that. Like there's a reason
Mm-hmm.
I have this conspiracy theory that Yawgmoth bargain when it got unrestricted was unrestricted because they had
Sit on
so
the card file. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it had multiple. Yeah. So I actually considered just recording my matches and not talking while I was recording them to prevent this, but I decided not to because the file size would have been huge. But I sort of regret not doing that now, I think. Um,
I mean it depends on how difficult you wanted to make the oh you don't want to watch that guy. Um, Yeah, like there's a level of pre-production that can go into this that
yeah.
it's like how much do you really it's how much do you want to depend on MTGO?
All
I
right.
wonder what
So Brian and I actually talked a bit before the tournament. So I know they're on Grixis Paradoxical Underworld Breach. So it's like a hybrid deck with Paradoxical Outcome and Breach. Um, so Mulligan accordingly because Jigsaw Joe are again not good because I did not play against a single Bazaar deck in this tournament. Sad. I think there was still enough to justify it. And all right, first question: do you keep?
no, I went wrong. I mean, you have preordained Pyroblast, which isn't the worst. What are you preordaining into though? Because you need mana as well, and you're pretty like it's pretty tight. Um, it's defensible. I'd probably mulligan, but it's a defensible keep.
Yeah, I don't remember what I did. Let's find out. I think I kept. All right.
You did keep. Okay.
So
I'm,
a few things are going on here. I think Bryant also loves to jam. Like a hand like this I think is better than average. Some people like to play it slower, but unfortunately we get punished. Their hand is really set up to play a slow game. And my hand is not good at playing a slow game. Academy's like kind of insane here, and I think I'm gonna lose to the top slowly if I don't make things happen. So I think my turn I just decide, well, I think I just have to start doing things.
that volcanic is actually one of the best
I
draws.
agree. So it was tutor gush. I think I bottom the gush and keep the tutor. The plan is to tutor for something at some point. Like it's my breach is very close to lethal because if you find brain freeze, the pedal becomes lethal. Or I mean, basically these three cards, if they all resolve, well, this already resolved. If this and this resolve, they die. Depending on how many cards you have in graveyard.
Yeah, you just need to basically get the graveyard full with the first brain freeze, and then you're golden.
So I actually maybe should have power blasted that.
Yeah, that's a consideration. I mean, you have two Pyroblasts, and
My mana's
like
tight is the other problem.
it's pretty easy to play around such tight mana and such narrow counter spells because your force will's off and
Yeah,
such. So
exactly.
yeah,
So I think that was actually a mistake. I didn't even I considered for 5 seconds. I'm like, nah, that's okay. And then 5 seconds later, I'm like, wait, that was actually probably a mistake.
I mean that's because Gataxian Probe is the best card in the format.
Yeah, it is. And okay, well, the jailer is back. I think I just tutor for Lotus on the theory that if I hit another card or two in graveyard, I can actually just win. But yeah, I get Lotus. This also lets me have all of the Pyroblasts up, but um, real cost of putting Silver Bullets into your deck. Sometimes you draw them and they're not good.
So what would that have been?
Probably like a Treasure Cruise or a Dig, which is not particularly good either.
Yeah,
So
because I figured Like it's been about 2 hours since we mentioned that. It's just
Yeah.
like if this wasn't in the deck, it would probably been dig through time, which would have been a force of will pitch card, most importantly.
Yeah, so I really regret not blasting now, I think. And now I think I'm going to lose to like the top is basically just really good here because they get to select the best card every turn, whereas I have to sit and take blind draws. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think I just have to do this. Tinker's like kind of an interesting consolation prize, but I don't even think it's that reliable. Yeah, and now I have to blast here, right?
Yeah, you have quite a bit of interaction though, so it's not the worst situation. But 5 cards in hand for the opponent and like 1 card apiece, and you can tell they're like really like playing around your hand because the top
Yeah.
didn't tap for their paradoxical outcome. Like they were very prepared
And now
for.
I'm just dead. They did
Yeah,
have to shuffle their top away, but then they just go bananas and I die.
yeah,
So
they made a lot of like small optimization concessions there in order to play
yeah,
around your hand. Like
they did.
one of the biggest heads up plays is not tapping top and responding with paradoxical outcome response just because you want access to the top card of your library. Like that was incredibly well piloted by Brian.
Yep. And I could have played it differently. I could have pyroblasted the probe to hide the information. I think that was probably a spew.
Yeah, that might have been the pivoting point there. I mean, his hand seemed particularly powerful, so you never know. But like,
The
definitely a
Well, so I'm not sure how powerful it was. I think the top made it powerful because we were playing a long game, right?
but that top was also in play since turn one. So like,
Exactly.
in terms of it making the hand more powerful, like, yeah,
So I did side in the mountain. I probably should have. That was a spew. Bolt, Tutor, Hercules, Brain Freeze, and Joer came out for um, Spree, Pyroblast, Fluster. What's the last card?
um, what is the last card? So you freeze Hercules,
Court of
mystical.
Cunning. That's what it
Oh,
was.
yeah, that's why I didn't remember it.
Yeah, I still don't know if that card's good or not. My intuition is that it's at least fine, but I'm not sure it's like there's a lot of 3 mana spells you can play in vintage that are fairly impactful, so I still don't know. The jury's out. The court is out.
The court is out. I mean,
Right.
it's what is the role play of that card of Court of Cunning in your sideboard? Is it kind of like
Another threat. It's a Phyrexian arena essentially that can instantly hate out Doomsday.
yeah, it's like Narset number two, sort of, kind of, not
Sort
really.
of. Hole Breacher would be a better Narset if I actually wanted Narset.
Yeah, it's like the side of Narset you want, which is drawing 2 cards.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So that was a bad pun, but you're here for it. All right. This is a key. My minute's not cooperating, but again, I think Fluster is really, really good in the matchup. If I draw Red Source, it's good, and I have Preordain to set up. But I think on turn one, you're not allowed to Preordain. On turn two, you are allowed to Preordain.
Correct. Yeah, that's something that we've seen quite a bit in
Oh,
this.
shit.
Oh wow, I'm actually surprised.
Why did I do that? I think that's just a mistake, actually. God damn, the probe's back. And they go bananas with card drawing, and I feel like I'm in bad shape again. Although they did crack their Lotus Flea Knight's Whisper, so. But the top here is really, really powerful again. I mean, I
It
have a
was
top, but they have more mana, so theirs is
the
just going to
pause.
be more powerful.
Um,
Oh, so I kept the Tundra off this Preordain. I probably
um,
shouldn't have, because finding a red
yeah,
source is better.
with your hand being so red, that's actually pretty surprising. It really should have been on the bottom.
Yep, that's a mistake, too.
But yeah, they had the most powerful card in vintage with Cataxian Probe, and they were able to see that a very like just card draw heavy line was willing to be taken. Like Knight's Whisper, like you usually wouldn't burn Knight's Whisper with Black Lotus. Like that usually wouldn't be the case, but especially with like their board position after this and knowing your hand, I think it's worth it. And looks like they're just fueled up.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, I think keeping that Tundra was bad in retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of turn that went by that I'm like, I want to talk about all that.
All right. So I saw Fluster, Pedal, Tinker. I drew the second Fluster because I think it's the safest one to draw this turn.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't really want to do anything because like I can't actually do very much profitably.
This lets you counter their tinker right now too, which
Yep.
is like you force it if they fluster back, you can let it resolve and then fluster their tinker.
So it was Court of Cunning, Tinker, Lotus Pedal, and I choose to drew the pedal and just play it slow still because I think my hand's so reactive that maybe I can force them into a situation where all of our stuff trades off. Then I slam a bomb.
That makes sense. Yeah, you want that red mana open.
Yeah, but then I change my mind and I just this makes no sense. I think this was just atrocious.
Yeah, I think Pyroblast was much better there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this makes no sense, and now they know this is offline. You know,
Yeah.
and it's
Like
possible that they can beat one Fluster Storm with this mana setup, right? Or two Fluster Storms with this mana setup.
yeah, like Tinker's not going to beat it, but like a lot of things will, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I think I should not have done that. That's just horrendous. I think, in
Yeah.
retrospect.
Although now they have Tolarian Academy, so it makes it look even worse.
So yeah, I have to force this, but I chose to draw the Tinker and just force pitching Tinker because I think double Fluster is better to leave in my hand.
Yeah, this is also kind of like the hole that was dug with the Arcanist play is that not
Yeah.
having access to Power Blast here on their Force of Will just ended up being particularly,
Well,
yeah, let's see
yeah.
this.
And you cannot really fluster their fluster here. It doesn't really work. So what you have to hope is they somehow mess it up and you get to fluster. Except the problem is it's so hard to mess it up when you can cast all of your spells over and over, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just once that Underworld Breach resolves, they're just
Yeah.
going to town.
Oh, also you can't fluster anything because they can just fluster your fluster off the breach as well.
Yeah, yeah, they have full access
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, with especially with that deep of a graveyard. So
So yeah,
yeah, in retrospect, the Arcanist play was definitely not where you want it to be, and kind of locked you out of a good counter spell.
yeah, it was pretty bad. All right. So round 8, the final round. I actually get paired into someone who's third and I'm like 20th. But like if breakers go my way, maybe I can sneak in. All my opponents would have to like win. So it's like whatever. So, so I recognize his username because I looked at the challenge results. This person made top 8 of the challenge the week before with Bug Shadow essentially in this form, and I'm just like, okay, I don't really want to play Silver Slim. They probably have a bunch of discard. Like you just want to jam when you can play around days or something like that, you know?
Yeah, like Bug Shadow is an interesting take on the metagame. Like not particular. Like I'm not a big fan of Shadow decks in general in the Eternal
Mm-hmm.
formats, just because like Shadow itself is like a very like power and toughness threat where you have a bunch of threats in the format that you could easily play over that do stuff besides attack,
Right.
even if it's go wide with Monastery Mentor, wide and tall.
Yep. So let's see what happens. Okay. Well, I have one dead card, but this sounds like pretty good other besides that. So
Yeah, you have first turn Arcanist, which is important.
yep. Arcanist has to be like great versus a discard deck as well, so
Yeah.
they cycle Street Wraith in response, so that means they're looking for a Force of Will, I think.
Shadow is definitely the like the night and day difference between Shadow cycling a Street Wraith and Doomsday cycling a Street Wraith is just astronomical.
And so everything's confirmed, right?
Yeah.
Like this screams you anyone who's played modern knows exactly what's going on here now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Except
Like
this is
this is how you cross promote your product. It's just like, hey, come watch my vintage replays. Our opponent plays Water Your Grave into Death Shadow.
so
Like,
I mystical for the tinker. I'm just like even if this fails, I'm still in okay shape.
yeah, because the fail case here is Tinker doesn't resolve, and then you tutor for Ancestral, and
Yep.
then you can double Ancestral next turn, which is a pretty good consolation prize.
And to complete the narrative, I think they would have forcible this Arcanist.
Yeah, it's way too much value.
Yeah.
Like they, you're just going to similar to Legacy out Xerox the Xerox deck.
Well, I mean, my deck is more broken if you let me do this shit without having counters, and now they're like mostly dead.
Yeah, what's a better card, Tinker or like a 3/3 for one?
So I probed them, and they had the days, but I had one mana floating from the Lotus and Pearl.
That's incredible.
I know. It's just they're probably hoping that I did not have it, except it was already face up. So all
Yeah,
right. So now they're mostly dead, I think.
yeah.
You just draw the force because it's better in your hand. You don't want to reveal it to Citadel, and now you can just get past everything. Norset gets past that, and now they're like just dead however many ways. I'm just mystical for brain freeze here for lethal.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can cast it off the top of your library
Yep,
and just
exactly. Citadel plus top deck tutors is actually just the same as tutoring, except you have to pay life to cast a spell, but it's really, really abusive to do this.
yeah, there's
And
a lot of times with like some of the more classical paradoxical outcome Citadel decks is like you end up vampiric tutoring for like Monastery Mentor for the
yeah.
kill more often than not.
Or time walk if you already have the mentor, obviously.
Exactly.
All right, so that was a quick one. Yeah, I was pretty sure that they were doing that too, Mario. Yeah, I know. But based on where they were in the standings, I think they were still going to make it even if they lost. Now is probably still not going to make it. So this is an attrition matchup. So Jailer came out, Mystical came out, Hercules came out, and one Brain Freeze came out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just like all of the tried and true. Like we've seen that boarding before. It's just like you're trying to like outclass like on a one for one basis kind of their stuff. So you take out all the dead like matchup specific cards and like despite the fact that we didn't get to Pyroblast anything there, they have plenty too in the deck.
Yep.
Even if like Death Shadow's black, yeah, but like Days and Ancestral are still things.
Well, not days. You're probably not blasting the days, but Force
What
of
do you
Will,
mean?
obviously.
What do you mean? It's a blue spell. What do you mean?
All right. Anyways, do you keep this on the draw versus Shadow?
On the draw. So this hand is like so. First game we saw Deathrite Shaman off the get go,
Mm-hmm.
which Bolt lines up pretty well against.
Yep.
I think it's pretty good. It's definitely on the lower side of keepable, just because you don't have any sort of pro action that hits play fairly soon. But like
Yep.
your reaction of just like that volcanic island's going to do work either holding something, holding up Pyroblast first turn. So
Right.
I like our odds keeping the 7.
I think I end up keeping for all of the same reasons, and I think Narsa is just really, really good versus them as well. So,
Yeah,
all right. And
that's
I'm
right.
like, okay, fine. I'll probably just bolt that. And actually, the Mox lets me play around days, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that Mox is perfect too because it also sets up an earlier Narset if you want it.
They only have death rights. I'm like, oh, well. So I don't play the Narset because I didn't give them an opportunity to daze my bolt. So I think waiting a turn to play around days is good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just because it's setting up Narset earlier by drawing the Pearl doesn't necessarily mean you want to set it up for the second turn. Like you still want to you want to blank their cards essentially,
So
and that
I'm 2/3 of the way there, but you have to be careful with how priority works with Brain Freeze versus Deathrite. You cannot Deathrite Lotus, so that's good. So basically, you're never allowed to have Brain Freeze in the graveyard when you don't have two blue up, essentially, or one in a blue up, rather.
yeah, the worst thing that you can do is have the brain freeze in the yard and have a fetch land that you want to crack. I think that's the biggest mistake I've seen people make.
So I just play Narset here, I think. They force it, I blast. It's like really good all around for me.
Yeah.
I find Merchant Scroll. This is Brain Freeze. Okay, so if you work it out, if they didn't have Death Rights, I could have actually won this turn. But since they have Death Rights, I can't. Because you have exactly 6 mana, which is Breach, replay Lotus, play Merchant Scroll for freeze, but then you'll have no floating, so they'll get to eat your Brain Freeze.
Yeah. In response to the scroll.
So you have to wait a turn, but I do have it lined up assuming they have nothing. And if they like draw Thoughtseize or whatever, I can just misstep it, so it's like great.
Yeah, you're pretty set up here.
Time walk, okay, that's fine. They attack for 2, that's fine. Actually, they misplayed that last turn. They attacked for 2, they should have just ate my turn and ate my Pyro.
Yeah, you're right. Like it would have
Yeah.
been the same damage output, and like you definitely want to be using your Deathrite Shamans to eat yard fuel. Like even if the cards themselves aren't particularly powerful, just knowing that your opponent's on a breach deck, you want to like limit their yard capability.
And actually, that costs them, right? I wouldn't have had enough to kill this turn, this upcoming turn cycle.
I mean, you still have a bunch out. Like
Oh, they
you,
attacked my Narset. Oh, that makes sense. Huh. Okay, maybe, I don't know. I guess it's kind of close. Hmm.
yeah. I mean, it's really. I mean, the other piece of it is whether or not the it was valuable for the Narset to be off the table. Like if it's pure damage output, then yeah, you're
Sure.
right. I didn't realize either that it was after the Narset. If they're trying to get that thing off the table in order to cast a cantrip, then for sure it was correct to do.
Right.
But
Okay.
I wonder how important the Narset is here.
I do too. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
And now they don't even get rid of it, so I don't know. It's
Yeah,
weird.
that really throws me.
So now I draw Brain Freeze. I think this becomes safer because now I don't even have to scroll, right?
I think they didn't go after the Narset because it takes them off of black mana.
Yeah.
That's probably why, which is silly. Like thought. I don't know. I'm not particularly skilled against playing against Shadow and Vintage because it doesn't come up that often. But I wonder if the thought seize was like if it was so important to attack the Narset the prior turn, then why not attack it this turn and do something else instead of thought seizing? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, I think thought seizing is definitely correct. I don't think that's debatable. It's just the other stuff. Um, this turn, the only interesting thing in my book is do I play around Abrupt Decay? But I looked at their past lists and they were all like straight blue black. Essentially, green is for just this activation. So
Yeah.
I chose not to play around Decay, and I think that's fine. They did deny an activation of Narset. Um, I question if denying an activation of Narset is better than denying cards in graveyard for Breach, but it probably is. So it's
I guess you're trading off like Narset's the obvious, like it is definitely an activation available to you
yeah.
versus like maybe you have Underworld Breach and can get value off of it. So
So
yeah,
in their perspective, they don't know my hand. They probably do think the Narset activation is more valuable, so I think it is defensible. Let's just
yeah,
talk it all the way through.
yeah,
Obviously, it
good
worked out better for me.
information.
That's what I will say.
Yeah, for you it's like because on your side that
Sure,
it
yeah.
doesn't matter, but like especially with the top deck brain freeze this turn. But yeah, in certain situations the known information is better to go after than the unknown.
Yep. So now I think what they did is actually fine in retrospect. So I eat my words, and that's fine. That's what we watch.
That's why we talk it out. That's why we see things that are mistakes in retrospect and how they were like absolutely like mind-blowing plays in retrospect as well.
So breach, crack for blue. I think I should have actually replayed my Lotus first. Yeah, I should have replayed my Lotus first. Um, the
Well,
reason to do that is then I have double brain freeze up if they try to eat it. Like, I don't know, they could have something really weird. It's just floating the mana I'm going to have to do anyways. I should just float the mana first.
I mean, they're shadows, so something really weird isn't out of their wheelhouse for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what exactly it could be that.
I mean, the other thing would be this is the Storm 2 Rain Freeze. Like you would have had like the playing the Lotus here would have been net neutral with the fuel that you would have had in
Yep,
your graveyard.
exactly.
So that is also a point towards it, and you could have like scrolled for something. I don't know, like a Flusterstorm or something.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think scrolling is not great because it uses too much mana and might lead to like me losing
Well,
instead.
if you
But
think about it though, like your brain freeze, like Lotus before versus Lotus after, your brain freeze is going to be the same amount of fuel. So if you Lotus first, that is exactly the mana for whatchamacallit, um, Immerse and Scroll into Flusterstorm, and you still have the 2 mana, the 3 mana floating for that matter. So like you have all your bases covered, so you don't get death right out of comboing out.
hmm
So
yeah,
that's
I think I was well. Okay, so I think maybe scrolling for Fluster first is better, and also playing the Lotus first is also better. So I think those are both mistakes in retrospect.
yeah. The scroll for Flusterstorm is obviously less important, but Lotus casting Lotus first is like objectively better.
Yeah. Okay. It's you watch the tape. I think they end up having nothing, so they lose. But I could have optimized for that corner case, and basically cost me nothing to do it. So they ate black, and they just were hoping I didn't understand what was going on here, which is fine. Like that's probably their best route, and I
The
mean,
plan is to do something instead of nothing at all.
yep. And then they concede. So, that's all 8 matches. Pretty decent showing. Obviously, I didn't play perfectly, but I think my deck was well constructed, and I have things I can improve on. But round 7, I could have played better. Round 2, I just kind of got stomped, so it's like that one's not really fixable. But round 7 was fixable, so and I could have played better in some of the games I won, so it's always good. I believe there is a vintage PTQ on this Sunday on MTGO.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be playing that.
I probably will not be. I don't care that much about qualifying for it, but for people who do care, I think this is a defensible choice. Maybe you want to not main deck the Jailer. Depends on how much dredge you expect. I think this is a good choice. I think dredge is a fine choice. I think some shops deck is a fine choice, and I think combo oath. Well, I haven't tested it, but it looked pretty strong when I was playing against it. Are all like pretty good choices. I know you're not. You're probably not going to do any of those things, and that's fine. And there's other decks you can pick too.
You talking about me specifically because
Yeah,
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 you know what I'm going to do.
yeah. I know what you're going to do, and I don't want to spoil it in case we play against people in the chat. So, you know,
Uh, Well, if you ever want to look up the exact 75 that I've been jamming in every single event since I bought my all access token, you can go to mtggoldfish.com/players/PSYBURAT and look at the most recent Hogak list, and I am still jamming that exact 75 until somebody convinces me otherwise.
all right. So you got 2 resubs today. Shout out to lots of Volants and other lady underscore and actually JW Hollow. So 3. So I'll probably have to open some chests. All right. A few things before we go. What do you think of this Dreadbore, Mike?
I think that Dreadbore is amazing. I like all of the cards in that secret lair, but I do not think it's the best card in that secret lair.
Do you think it's Thaxamundar?
Yeah, it's absolutely Thraxamundar.
All right. What do you think of this card? How does this card make you feel as a humans aficionado?
I have made financial decisions based on that card, and it was not buying the secret lair.
Love it. All right. Let's open 3 chests for the loyal viewers. I have so many now because of that.
Don't
Yeah,
open.
I hate the Dreadbore, but I realize I'm like one of the few people that hates it.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so Wake, I played in the prelim yesterday with the same 75 as I previously said, and I did get I played against Noblefish twice. I refuse to call it anything else. Played against Noblefish twice, and I did get housed by it the second time. So like it's on my radar as something to play, but I haven't made the switch quite yet.
So you remember Bantu the Glorified and Shiziko Color of Autumn?
I think the biggest thing is realizing that Bantu was a crocodile. I always thought it had ears.
What?
It's crocodile.
Oh.
Yeah, see, you didn't know either. You see that hood and you think it's ears, but it's a
Oh,
crocodile.
yeah, no, it's a crocodile.
I
It's
mean, look at Basu's Last Reckoning. It looks much more crocodile in that one.
Vampire Nocturnus.
Oh yeah,
Belby Corrupted Observer. Belby, a reference to Mask's block.
yeah. I had the mercenary precon that had Dolby's Portal, and when I
So,
was
so did I, actually. I also had
yeah,
the Rebels precon because why wouldn't you play Rebels versus Mercenaries? It's just flavor.
yeah, exactly. That was the whole point of the block was that was that
It
battle.
turns out Rebels was much better than Mercenaries on the
Yeah.
whole.
Who knew that improving your creatures over time versus making them worse was the better thing to do?
Yeah, going up the chain is better than going down the chain.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
None of these cards are good.
is that the most disappointing Liliana that's ever been printed?
Uh, no, I think the current one that's legal and standard is more disappointing. But
You know what? I have to agree because I don't even know what it is.
all right, so there's this one, which at least does that. Let's go look at the other one. I'll pull it up real quick for the chat. I think it's this one.
Oh yeah,
This
that
one
is
I think is really. I think it's worse than the other one, but they're both kind of not great.
like things like Death's Majesty, like notwithstanding, like we're not talking Planeswalker deck ones, but yeah, you're right. Waker of the whatevers, that one's pretty terrible. You're right.
All right, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I don't think I'm going to be on tonight. Maybe if I get bored, I'll stream some Teamer Cube. Um, I think I'll be back Wednesday to cover my legacy matches and maybe also play some Cube or something like that. I'm not sure. But thanks for everyone being here.
Plug something?
Thanks. What? Sure,
Can I
yeah, plug something.
Yeah, so I don't really particularly put out content of my own. I'm mostly somebody that piggybacks when somebody wants me to show up. In addition to Jarvis's stream today, I was asked to do a commentary thing for 90s MTG, which can be found at twitch.tv/90s MTG. And that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. So if you want to see some paper vintage, that would be the place to check it out.
All right. So, yep, thanks for everyone being here. I'm probably going to leave soon, but I will be back on Wednesday or Thursday to stream more. But I figured going over these matches is interesting and finding someone who's more experienced in the format than myself. Um, I basically play once per month, and that's about it. Which is not a lot, but it's not zero, you know?
I mean, that's more than me.
I play once per month, and I have to always decide how do I want to build my deck, or even what macro archetype do I want to play this month, and it's always a struggle. But I was satisfied. 6-2 is pretty decent, especially when you don't practice any. Especially when you don't. I did not play a single game with this deck before the tournament. I'm not gonna lie. So it's basically all theory.
Yeah, I mean the deck building theory thing especially is pretty good. Like the especially with Dreadhorde Arcanist, like that is just like a heads up deck building decision that seemed to benefit you like tremendously.
Yep. I'll post it on YouTube in a bit. Should we raid Jim Davis? He's playing Vintage Paradoxical Outcome. It's on theme.
Yeah, I would say vintage is the correct thing to raid, so let's
All
do
right.
it.
So thanks everyone. We'll be back. I'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, maybe both. Anyways, see ya.
Later.